never attended a meeting before, the meeting agendas are available in the rear of the pavilion. If you'd like to be heard on any matter, please fill out a slip and give it to one of our public safety officers. After the meeting is adjourned, the town board will remain in session, as is our custom of 350 years, to hear any other matters that the public would like to bring before the board. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilman Ambrosino. Here. Councilman Blakeman.
Here.
Councilman Diaz-Pazito.
I am here.
Councilman Dunn.
Here.
Councilwoman King Sweeney.
Here.
Senior Councilwoman Gooseby.
Here.
Supervisor Gillen.
Here. I now ask Councilman Ambrosino to lead us all in the Pledge of Allegiance.
All rise. Put your hand over your heart and join with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Some.
I'd ask everybody to please remain standing for one moment. Our senior councilwoman has lost her brother, Joseph McMillan Jr., so we'd like to have a moment of silence in his honor. Senior councilwoman, we're all very sorry for your loss.
You like my pledge?
Supervisor, I'd like to, on a point of personal privilege, to make a statement. My favorite color has always been pink, and now I know why. After a routine mammogram and ultrasound, I was diagnosed with breast cancer the first week of December. Last Thursday, I underwent a lumpectomy at NYU. The operation was a success. I want to sincerely thank my doctors and nurses at NYU, one of the country's leading academic medical centers. Once I'm fully healed from the surgery in about 4 weeks, I will have about 3 weeks of radiation. I consider myself extremely fortunate. I'm living proof that routine mammograms do make all the difference. Luckily, the cancer was caught very early and will make a full and speedy recovery. I share this news with you for several reasons. I'm not looking for anyone's sympathy. One, most importantly, at 45 years old and with low risk factors for breast cancer, I had every reason to procrastinate my annual mammogram. I wish to serve as a vocal advocate for early detection of breast cancer. As busy moms juggling kids, careers, life, we tend to put our health at the end of the to-do list. I hope that by sharing my experience, I can alter what could otherwise be an awful diagnosis for a family to endure. I would like to place particular focus on outreach to minority women who've all too often not had adequate access to health care. Simply put, we are all in this together. Second, I'm a public official. I was hired by the 5th Councilmanic District to do a job. I tend to face things head-on and openly. I'm not ashamed of this challenge, and I will certainly not shy away from it. And for all you political gossipers out there, if I'm fortunate enough to receive the nomination by my party, the Republican Party, to run for re-election this November, I will enthusiastically accept it. The last 7 weeks have taught me a lot. You never quite know how you will respond when a doctor tells you that you have cancer. Admittedly, I'm amazingly fortunate with early detection, the type of cancer, and the lack of genetic markers. I resolved early on to guarantee that this story has a happy ending and to recommit myself to public service and life in the arena. I plan to marshal all attention and resources necessary to better understand the high incidence of cancer on Long Island. I will aggressively push for greater research into the quality of Long Island's drinking water and the impact of environmental toxins on our public health. More can and must be done at the federal, state, and local levels. We cannot allow critical funding at the National Institutes of Health to be held hostage by political infighting and uninformed policymakers. Medical breakthroughs require funding, perseverance, and the ability to dream. Finally, I wish to thank my family. My husband is the only guy who could turn cancer surgery into a romantic New York City date night. That's why I love him. My mom, thank you for keeping it together with the kids and for your understanding. Thank you to my brother Sean for his words of encouragement. And a very special thank you to my Aunt Barbara, who helped me navigate the medical maze. And finally, thank you to my dad. Now that the election is over, the votes have been counted, and the out-of-state money has been donated, I wish to say in a very personal way how thankful and lucky I am to have Pete King as my dad. As I faced this challenge after my first call to John, I called my dad to tell him the news. Dad has been with me every gritty step of the way. He has organized pickup at ballet and gymnastics. He has fed the kids, taken out the dog. He has lended an ear and has been actively engaged in every medical development along the way. For some political opportunists to even suggest that my dad doesn't support women's health care and empowerment is appalling. It seems recently that it's become fashionable to attack someone's character and unload the most baseless accusations simply to get ahead and score political points. I'm reminded of the day I missed the town of Hempstead Kwanzaa ceremony. I had just finished an MRI biopsy and was afraid that I would be running late to my daughter's performance in the Nutcracker. I made a family decision not to let my 10-year-old down, yet I was called yet again a fraud and a hypocrite for doing so. The last 7 weeks have taught me that kindness and decency do matter, and we as public officials need to start leading with class and dignity. And on a very happy note, I now have yet another plastic surgeon in my Rolodex, and forever will fit into my skinny jeans with my new and improved healthy diet. So now let's get to work.
I'd like to thank the Councilwoman for saying what we did. And certainly, I'm very happy that she has decided to join me in the fact that I have been working with breast cancer because it's so important for the past 17 years. And now she's going to join me because I had a scare myself. And when I did, that's when I started and know how important it is, especially the people who live in my district who do not have access. They do not know how to navigate. So I can say, since we've been doing this, we have saved more than 25 years. And we will continue to do it. And if anyone else would like to join us, please, we have a breast cancer forum once a year. And it's not enough, but I have Jerry Barish who's working with me, and we'll have a van here each time we have a breast cancer forum because it's been named after her. So I don't have to worry about that anymore. So I'm so happy you're going to be fine. I was fine, and you're definitely going to be. So God bless you.
First of all, I'd like to thank Erin for her candor and her courage. And I would like to say that here on Long Island, we have amazing women who formed the Breast Cancer Action Coalition 1 in 9 about 25 years ago. And we established the first breast cancer learning resource center in America at Hewlett House on East Rockaway Road in Hewlett. And they have helped over 60,000 women since they opened with breast cancer. It has touched all our lives. We all know somebody that's had it. And the fact that it's so treatable now is due to the advocacy of the women right here on Long Island who started, starting with, as Councilwoman Gooseby said, Jerry Barish, who's one of the most courageous people I've ever met. So thank you for sharing with us, because it's important that women do go and get their mammograms and they follow up. And if they do, God forbid, have a problem, please use the resource at Hewlett House. It's a wonderful facility for women who need to know what they need to do and how to take care of themselves, and to go for therapy and make sure that their children go for therapy, because when children hear cancer, they think the worst, and we don't want to scare them. So again, thank you for your courage and your candor in this matter, because it's important that we speak out.
Councilwoman, I'm sorry to hear your diagnosis. I'm glad that you had a positive outcome. We had a recent diagnosis in my family as well, and I think everybody here on the town board will share your advocacy to work in terms of raising awareness and reaching out to try to help those suffering from that disease. Madam Clerk, will you please call the first public hearing?
Councilwoman King Sweeney, I'm also very sorry about the diagnosis, but you're a very courageous woman, and pink is a beautiful color for you, so you will continue to wear it proudly. And to Senior Councilwoman Gooseby and Councilwoman King Sweeney, I'd like to help you with outreach in the Hispanic community if you so wish. I would very much like to help you. Okay. Proposed local law regarding regulations and restrictions to limit parking in Baldwin near Belrose Terrace.
Belmore, Elmont, near Island Park, Merrick, and Seaford.
I do not have any slips on this public hearing. Is there anyone who'd like to be heard?
Good morning, Nita J. Meriday, Baldwin resident. First and foremost, Senior Councilwoman Guzzi, you have our condolences for your loss, you and your family. Councilwoman Erin King Sweeney, you definitely have my support. Having raised 2 children who lost their mother to stage 4 breast cancer in 2005, and living in a cancer cluster, and as the Senior Councilwoman pointed out, breast cancer is most insidious for women of color, who too often lack the resources and the support. So we do stand together in that and trying to address those issues, and we welcome the resources that have been long withheld from the distressed communities to make a difference, to give more information, and to be more upfront and preventative as opposed to reactionary in that support. With regard to this issue on the agenda, I just need to know what the address is, as far as it pertains to Baldwin.
Morning, Supervisor, Town Board members. Tom Reed, representing Traffic Control.
Good morning.
This location is on Chestnut Street in Baldwin, near the railroad station.
And the restriction is?
We're changing a 2-hour parking, which runs from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. in the afternoon, to a no stopping 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. restriction per resident.
Okay, and this was derived from, was it from the residents, businesses, or what was the?
The request came from the resident herself.
Okay, thank you. Okay. And one other quick note as it pertains to parking by the Long Island Railroad. There's still a lot of confusion with regard to the town codes as it pertains to parking and the designations where there are the few handicap spots. There have been residents who have received tickets because they have been parked in a handicap zone, but they don't have the town sticker or the local resident sticker. That might be something that we are looking for the town to possibly revise or reconsider, because the Long Island Railroad is used by people from out of town, and if there's the occasion that someone from out of town who is handicapped and they park in the handicapped spot to take the Long Island Railroad to New York City, they come back, after spending money, which we want to promote tourism, and they're coming back and they get a $135 ticket. That doesn't seem to be advantageous for people who have special needs.
It's certainly something we can look into. Maybe you can just discuss it with Mr. Reed after the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anybody else who'd like to be heard on this public hearing? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
I move that the public hearing be closed and the local law adopted.
Madam Clerk?
Councilman Ambrosino.
Aye.
Councilman Blakeman.
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Pasito.
Aye.
Councilman Dunn.
Aye.
Councilwoman King Sweeney. Senior Councilwoman Gooseby. Supervisor Gillen.
Aye. Madam Clerk, please call the next public hearing.
Proposed local law regarding parking or standing prohibitions in Baldwin near Belrose Terrace, Belmore, Elmont, Lido Beach, Oceanside, Roosevelt, Uniondale, and Woodmere.
I do not have any slips on this public hearing. Is there anyone who'd like to be heard? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Move to close the public hearing and adopt the local law.
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Councilman Ambrosino.
Aye.
Councilman Blakeman.
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Pasito.
Aye.
Councilman Dunn.
Aye.
Councilwoman King Sweeney. Senior Councilwoman Gooseby. Supervisor Gillen.
Aye. Madam Clerk, please call the next public hearing.
Proposed local law regarding arterial stops in East Meadow, Elmont, Franklin Square, Oceanside, Roosevelt, Uniondale, and Woodmere.
I do not have any slips on this public hearing. Is there anyone who'd like to be heard? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Move that we close the hearing and that be adopted.
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Councilman Ambrosino. Councilman Blakeman.
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Pasito.
Aye.
Councilman Dunn.
Aye.
Councilwoman King Sweeney.
Aye.
Senior Councilwoman Gooseby. Supervisor Gillen.
Aye. Madam Clerk, please call our next public hearing.
Proposed local law regarding traffic regulations in the vicinity of schools in Elmont.
I do not have any slips on this public hearing. Is there anyone who'd like to be heard? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Move the public hearing be closed, proposed local law adopted. Second.
Madam Clerk?
Councilman Ambrosino. Councilman Blakeman.
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Esposito.
Aye.
Councilman Dunn.
Aye.
Councilwoman King Sweeney.
Aye.
Senior Councilwoman Gooseby. Supervisor Gillen.
Aye. Madam Clerk, please call our next public hearing.
Proposed handicap parking on public streets in East Atlantic Beach, Elmont, Franklin Square, Oceanside, and Roosevelt.
I do not have any slips on this public hearing. Is there anyone who'd like to be heard? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Supervisor, I move that the public hearing be closed and that the regulations be adopted.
Second motion. Madam Clerk?
Councilman Ambrosino. Councilman Blakeman.
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Esposito. Councilman Dunn.
Aye.
Councilwoman King Sweeney.
Aye.
Senior Councilwoman Gooseby. Supervisor Gillen.
Aye. Madam Clerk, please call the next public hearing.
Application of Wantagh 3215 LLC for a permit to include existing gasoline service station with GSS district to demolish existing building, a new one-story, 2,996-foot convenience store and gasoline service station facility will be constructed, adding 6 MPDs providing 12 fueling stations will be constructed, as will a 20-foot by 136-foot canopy covering the MPDs in Wantagh.
Good morning, Supervisor Gillen, members of the board, William Vanesso for Kelly Deegan Tirana, 333 Earl Ovington Boulevard, Uniondale, New York. Here on behalf of the applicant, Wantagh 3215 LLC. The applicant is the owner of the property in question. Seated to my right is Mr. Frank Filisciotto of Stonefield Engineering. He has been before this board in the past and recognized as a traffic expert. He will be providing testimony in connection with the application. The application before the board involves a parcel of property situated on the west side of Wantagh Avenue in Wantagh. At its southerly end, the property begins at the northwest corner of Wantagh Avenue and Merrick Road. It extends all the way up to the north end of its property, which is situated on the southwest corner of Wantagh Avenue and Linden Street. The property is comprised of 3 tax lots, section 56, lot 156, lots 8, 9, and 207. The lots are all zoned Business X District. They are presently developed with 3 structures thereon. The site has a long history of being used for both automotive and commercial uses, including gasoline service station and convenience market. What the applicants here are proposing is the complete redevelopment of the premises, the demolishing of the existing structures, and in its place to redevelop the property with a 7-Eleven convenience market and gasoline service station. Now, the clerk noted, and she was correct when the application was first filed, that we were proposing 6 MPDs. At the present time, we were actually proposing only 5 MPDs. That was one of the modifications that were made as a result of meetings with the Wantagh Secret Homeowners Association. The site history for this property goes back quite some distance. Back in 1926, the earliest town records show that a gasoline service station was built at the site. Since that time, over the years, it started as a layman's filling station and lunchroom. It became a Shell station. It was branded under Cosal, then Gasco, all the way up to 2007, when it ceased to be used as a gasoline service station. However, the building that is situated down on the south end of the property has 3 service bays, repair bays, which are currently in use for an automotive repair shop. And anybody who's been by it has seen that it's an active site. There are vehicles that are presently stored on the site for automotive repair. The middle portion of the property, which has an address of 2264 Wantagh Avenue, that is a building that was first built in 1952, so it's been there for over 50 years. It was first operated as a poultry and egg market, then as a drive-through hamburger restaurant with approvals from the zoning board. Then in 1973, it started to be operated as the Wantagh Smoke Shop. And in 87, one of the principals of the LLC that is the owner of the property, the Kapoor family, acquired title to the property, and they have operated it as a convenience market. And in 1987, they added a deli to the. In the early 90s, they added a deli to the facility. So since that time, it's been operating as a deli and convenience market, and that's situated more towards the north end of the property. The third parcel is the most northerly portion of the property. Again, it's zoned Business X District. The portion adjacent to Wantagh Avenue is improved with asphalt and parking, striped for parking in association with the deli and convenience market. To the west of that is a single-family residence that was built back in 1956. But again, 1946. But again, that property too is zoned Business X District. So again, it's important to note that because this property has a long history of being used for gasoline service station and convenience uses. What the applicants are proposing to do is simply to redevelop the site, make it a much more attractive site, make it a much more efficient site by building the new 7-Eleven facility. And when they designed the site, they really did design the site not only to make it work efficiently, as you'll hear from our traffic expert, but also with an eye towards the residential homes that are situated on Linden Street. If you take a look at the site plan, you'll see that the convenience market is proposed to be situated very far south on the property. It's basically tucked in behind a residential property. By the way, they own that residential property. That piece is not being converted, and it's not part of this application, but the applicants also own that residential property, so they're not negatively affecting the owner of that property. But the convenience market will be tucked in behind that property and close to the south end of the, or in the south end of the site. The parking will run along the front of that building and extend up to the north along the westerly property line. The MPDs will be situated to basically in the middle of the site, leaving very little activity occurring at the northernmost portion of the property. There will be a curb cut there. However, there's a curb cut there presently, and it's accessed from the north under the present circumstances. Only under the present circumstances, the convenience market is much further north, and the parking for the convenience market, the main portion of parking for the convenience market, is situated right next to Linden Street. It's fully expected that when patrons come onto the property, they're going to park as close to the convenience market as possible. That's typical. So they're going to use that parking that is closest to Merrick Road because the convenience market is closest to Merrick Road. Now, the convenience market is proposed to be 2,996 square feet. Under normal circumstances, that would require 15 parking spaces. This site is providing 22 parking spaces. So there is ample parking. There will not be any parking congestion. There'll be no reason to park on Linden Street or off-site for any activity that will occur here. With regard to the MPDs, we originally proposed 6, we now have 5. The reason why we removed one, the one we removed was the one closest to the intersection. And after speaking with representatives of the Civic Association, they told us what we already knew, that this intersection is a very, very busy intersection. And they felt that it would be better if they created more of a space for site circulation on site by removing the MPD closest to the intersection. My client went back to 7-Eleven. 7-Eleven agreed to do that. So consequently, they removed that 6th MPD. They will maintain 5 MPDs. Now, it should also be noted that this property is almost an acre in size. It's 0.83 acres. So even though they will be having a 5 MPD service station with the convenience market, it is extremely large site. It is a very roomy site from the standpoint of site development. Site circulation will work beautifully. Again, I won't testify on that directly. Mr. Filisciotto will speak to that. The site is going to be fully landscaped. There's a landscape plan that has been submitted. That represents a major upgrade in the landscaping of the site. It will also be completely redeveloped from a grading and drainage standpoint. At the present time, I think there may be 10 dry wells on the property. There are going to be probably, actually I have the number. That's ridiculous. There'll be over 175 drainage structures implemented based upon current rules and requirements associated with a site of this size. So the grading and drainage is going to be far superior to what's there presently, and the appearance is going to be far superior. On the Linden Street side of the property, we made sure to implement a very intensive landscape buffer. There is presently, as indicated, there's presently a house that fronts on Linden Street. That house will be demolished. However, there's going to be a large lawn area with plantings and white PVC fencing. I neglected to hand these up, but let me hand these up now, if I may. If you scroll through these handouts, you'll see what the appearance of looking from across Linden Street at the north end of the property will be. It's a substantially heavily landscaped site, which will provide excellent screening for the residents on Linden Street. Now, in addition to the site improvements that are represented by this application, when we met with the Wantagh Seaford Homeowners Association, there was significant concern raised about the intersection itself. So, after our first meeting there, my client, Mr. Filisciotto, myself, we went back and looked at what kind of actual off-site improvements could be made to the area that would improve traffic circulation, traffic safety in the areas surrounding the intersection. And a number of improvements were proposed. My client is prepared to implement them all on his dime, and he's already received approvals and preliminary approvals from the necessary regulatory agencies that would control those. But to speak about that and to speak about the actual site circulation, I would like to turn it over now to Mr. Filisciotto.
Thank you, Bill. Good morning, Madam Supervisor, members of the Town Board. Just for the record again, Frank A. Filicciotto, F as in Frank, I-L-I-C-I-O-T-T-O. I'm a New York State licensed professional engineer with the firm Stonefield Engineering and Design. I have 15 years of experience in the field of traffic and transportation engineering as well as site design, and I have appeared before this board on prior similar matters. As Bill noted, we're proposing a 7-Eleven of 2,996 square feet supported by 10 gasoline vehicle fueling positions. As part of this project, and you've heard about some of the site aspects, the existing deli, the existing automotive repair store, as part of this application, all of those existing structures will be removed and a brand new facility will be constructed. Why that's important is because it gives us the opportunity to reimagine how access and circulation is done. And this site has a long history, as you've heard, dates back almost 100 years. And what was done back then is very different than what we do now in sort of state-of-the-art site design. And that first starts with a significant access consolidation. Right now there are 6 driveways serving this property. We're reducing that down to 3. So we have 3 frontages. There will be a driveway on every frontage. But 2 of those driveways, the 2 on the busiest roads, Wantagh Avenue and Merrick Road, will have no left turn restrictions. So what we're trying to do is achieve a balance between being able to get to the site but being able to do so safely and efficiently. So the driveway on Wantagh Avenue will be situated as far north as possible, virtually 200 feet from the intersection of Merrick Road and Wantagh Avenue. And it will provide right turn in and right turn out only. There'll be no left turns that can legally occur there. Similarly, on Merrick Road, there'll be a single driveway there that provides right turn in and right turn out. access only. And Linden Street, there's an existing driveway there today. We're adjusting the position of that driveway and also restricting left turn movements out of that driveway. That street, Linden Street, is a dead-end street, has a few single-family homes on it. And what we're doing is removing the ability for someone who might be confused about how to enter the Wantagh State Parkway. We're pushing them back out onto Wantagh Avenue, so there's no confusion that Linden Street provides access to the parkway, because it doesn't. So in terms of access and circulation, a significant reduction in the number of curb cuts, that reduces conflict points. It makes things generally safer when you're trying to enter and exit this site. In addition, as Bill noted, the site design itself, when you're designing uses that cater to a convenience-based crowd or customer base, it's very important that it be designed appropriately so people can conveniently maneuver in and out. And that distills down to the width of the driveways, the width of the drive aisles, and everything has been optimized for that type of traffic. We provide drive aisles in excess of 30 feet on either side of the fueling canopy, which is larger than the industry standard 24 feet for two-way traffic. As Bill noted, we have in excess of the minimum required parking that the town requires. We have 22 parking spaces, which is ample for this type of use. And I will note that a lot of customers today, I'm sure we've all been one of those customers who purchase gas, and maybe you're using cash, and you have to go into the store first to give the cash to the attendant in order to fuel. You might purchase a convenience item at that time, so the fueling position itself can also act as a parking space for that brief moment in time. So we do have ample position on this property to conduct that business. In terms of 7-Eleven gas stations, convenience stores, I think everyone's familiar with what they are, but I want to just, for the record, explain how they are not typically major generators of traffic. They certainly generate traffic to the site, but in terms of adding an abundance of new traffic to the roadways, that's really not something that they do. And the reason why is because they're placed on roadways that already have a significant volume of traffic. If you think about Merrick Road with over 30,000 vehicles per day on it, Wantagh Avenue in this section has about 15,000 vehicles per day. There's an abundance of traffic already on this roadway for the site to essentially borrow from. And really when that's done is it's done during more important tasks throughout your day. When you're going to work, you're going to school, things that are really important, you plan around. You don't plan around going to get gas typically or going to 7-Eleven. So the importance of a site like this in being able to service an existing customer base efficiently is more important. And we found that there's very little additional traffic that's added to the roadways once these are built. Upwards of 2/3 of the traffic is already on the roads. Yes?
I have a question. I know you probably addressed this already. I see on Merrick Road, there's a traffic light, is that right? That's a traffic light. And then the traffic is turning in, where's this man left? To the left. Does that mean that this traffic signal will be able to take care of the traffic that's coming in, from Merrick Road? Is that what that means?
So, if you're referring to the driveway on Merrick Road, you will not be able to make a left turn into that driveway. So you have to use the traffic light to go up onto Wantagh Avenue.
Thank you.
So we've seen upwards of 2/3 to 75% of traffic that ends up using these facilities already on the road today. So you're passing by today, you have no reason to stop at this site because it's not interesting to you. When 7-Eleven with a gas station goes there, you might be on your commute going west on Merrick Road in the morning, and you might be inclined to visit it. But that's not an additional car on the road because that car is already there today. In terms of the off-site improvements, we've taken a very hard look at this intersection. We know how busy it is. We've spoken at length with a lot of the residents and civic groups that actually live here. I don't live in this particular area, so we had the benefit of listening to them over the course of several hours and hearing some of the concerns that, quite frankly, they deal with on a daily basis. And while we can't, as one property owner, fix all of the issues, we've developed a fairly robust list of improvements that the applicant is willing to make as part of the project, contingent, of course, on Nassau County Department of Public Works' approval, but from the early indications we've gotten, they are supportive of the majority of these improvements. One of the things that we noticed first and foremost is that if you look eastbound on Merritt Road approaching Wantagh Avenue, there's a left turn lane there. And right now during peak hours, that turn lane is not sufficient at all. It's very common for vehicles to stack up beyond the capacity of that lane, and when they do so, they end up blocking the through lane adjacent to it. So we went out. So what we did was, right now there's about storage for about 8 vehicles in that lane. And when we performed a site inspection, we realized that if you go west on Merritt Road underneath the overpass, approaching the next intersection, which is Woodland, there's an opportunity to restripe the road to basically create double the capacity in that lane than there is now. So as part of this project, we're going to be restriping the eastbound lane to bring it back from 160 feet today to 300 feet in the future, which will allow for 15 vehicles to queue. What that does
That's to the east of the intersection?
That's west of the intersection, but in the eastbound direction. So it's the eastbound left turn lane. So as you're moving east on Merritt Road.
So you're going to prevent cars stacking up because they're in the through lane, but they want to get into the turning lane. Is that correct?
You'll be able to move basically double the amount of traffic you can now in that lane, which gets people out of the through lane and it has the opportunity to reduce the side swipe that can occur when people kind of jostle into that position there. So that's one of the biggest improvements that we're proposing to make. One of the other things we noticed too is that this intersection operates uniquely. There is an off-ramp from the Wantagh State Parkway that creates an intersection. And not to get too technical, but there are movements at this intersection that create conflicts, especially when vehicles are trying to make right turns on red. And if you've ever been at this intersection in the morning going west on Merritt Road, you know that there's a very heavy right turn movement from Merritt Road to go north on Wantagh Avenue. The reason being is that if you're trying to go north on the Wantagh State Parkway, the entrance ramp is on Poplar Street, which is one north of Linden's. It's above your field of view there, but people essentially make a right turn onto Wantagh Avenue and then eventually make a left turn onto Poplar. There's upwards of 900 vehicles doing that in the morning. What happens is people use the right turn on red to make those movements sometimes, and what they don't realize is that there are other movements taking place at that time that can cause conflict. So during that particular time when there is a conflict, we're proposing a no turn on red sign. It's not a permanent no turn on red sign where you can't ever make a right turn on red. It's a variable sign. You may have seen these throughout the county that will turn on and off based on what else is going on in the intersection. So that's something we're working with the county on as well. Additionally, when we performed our site inspection, we realized that this intersection is deplete in terms of pavement markings. Some of the pavement markings are not visible at all. Crosswalks are missing, stop lines are missing, the lane lines themselves are poor condition. We're proposing to basically restripe the entire frontage of Wantagh Avenue as well as the entire frontage of Merritt Road and introduce stop lines and crosswalks where they have either depleted or never existed in the first place. Additionally, the Linden Street intersection, you can see it on the big board there to your right, we're proposing to do not block the box at Linden Street. Do not block the box prevents most traffic. I'm not saying all drivers, but most drivers will steer clear of it. At times, Wantagh Avenue does back up towards Linden Street and beyond. What we're looking to do is introduce that do not block the box to keep that intersection open for the residents of Linden Street who have expressed some concern about being able to get out of their street today. In addition, and some of this has actually already been done by this town board, is some of the parking restrictions that we've effectuated. The applicant was interested in removing some of the frictions that occur on these streets with respect to people parking and where they probably shouldn't, especially on roads like Wantagh Avenue and Linden Street. We're proposing to essentially remove parking on the west side of Wantagh Avenue along our frontage, as well as along Linden Street on both sides. In addition, we're looking to, again, restripe both frontages so everything will be crystal clear, the pavement markings will be in good condition, people will be able to see where they're going. Those are some of the major improvements that we're proposing to do as part of the project. In addition, I noted the route to the Wantagh State Parkway. There have been some complaints over the years about drivers mistakenly turning onto Linden Street, thinking that they can get onto the parkway, only to be met with a dead end and an awkward maneuver around. We are proposing to add an additional sign on the northbound approach of Wantagh Avenue as you're going north to direct you to Poplar, as well as some additional dead-end signs on the Linden Street side of Wantagh Avenue so that drivers know very clearly that they should not turn onto Linden Street to really go anywhere. So as part of this project, not only do we know from studying the 7-Eleven projects, I've probably worked on over 100 7-Eleven projects with gas throughout the course of my career, many of them in Nassau County and the town of Hempstead. We know that they don't create an abundance of new traffic on the roads. We know that it's important to design the site to be able to accommodate the traffic that will visit it. And this site is superior in a lot of ways because of its ability to provide for adequate circulation around the fueling canopy. You can go in both directions. There's no need to reverse at any point on this site except if you need to back out of the parking space. There's a designated zone for the fueling, underground fueling tanks. There is dedicated trash enclosure for those types of operations, and the SOAR is focused at the far south end of the property to really make this more of a Merrick Road draw than a Linden Street or a Wantagh Avenue draw. So everything is focused towards the south where the traffic already exists. I want to point out that the fueling canopy, by the removal of that one MPD that Bill noted, it gives us about 80 feet from Merrick Road to the first gasoline fueling position. That is a significant distance that really is hard to find in the industry when sites are being designed for gasoline service stations. A lot of times in Nassau County, we're accustomed to pulling right off the road. I'm thinking of Hempstead Turnpike, you pull right off the road, and it's 20 feet before you get to a fueling position. This is not the case here. You have adequate time to turn in, maneuver, and then visit the fueling position. So from a site design standpoint, it's very generous in terms of dimensions and the amount of parking we're providing. And from an off-site improvement standpoint, I think both the applicant and the community will benefit by a lot of these improvements. I'm happy to answer any questions that I may have overlooked during the course of the testimony.
Thank you for your comments. I do appreciate it. I'm lucky enough to represent this part of Wantagh. I live about 2 miles away, and I've been in traffic in that exact spot. I'm very familiar with it. I grew up in Seaford. I live in Wantagh. So thank you for your presentation. A couple of questions for you. I note that there are current violations. Can you address those? And obviously the community wants these cleaned up, and going forward, they don't want any of these.
Yeah, there are some violations in connection with an addition to the convenience market that is not permitted. There's a shed there. There are some existing conditions that received some notices. That being said, this represents a complete redevelopment of the site. All of those violations will go away because all those structures, all the current operations on the property will go away. So this will represent a clean slate on this property, and it will be fully in accordance with the requirements of the town.
Okay, I also note that you met with the Wantagh Seaford Homeowners Association. I had been an active member prior to being on the town board, and obviously due to the sort of inherent conflict, I stepped away from that. But I am appreciative that you did reach out to, and I urge anyone who's here from the community in Wantagh to reach out to my office. We haven't had that much outreach, so if there are particular areas of concern, please do let us know. I know that we've heard a little bit also from the Wantagh Seaford Homeowners Association, some feedback on that. I will say that I am appreciative that Mr. Mann is proposing to put the sign, the Welcome to Wantagh sign. I hope it is as... Okay, so I know that what he did in Belmore was beautiful, and the community of Belmore has been very appreciative of the Belmore sign. So hopefully the Wantagh sign can be even nicer should this go forward. And I know that Councilman Dunn has a question for you.
Thank you. Yeah, hi. I've represented that area when I was in the legislature for 22 years, and I'm very familiar with it. With the traffic coming out of Montauk Park, going into Montauk Park, the congestion there, and it appears to address part of that. And the walkers and bike riders and skaters that go to Cedar Creek to go down to Jones Beach. It's just a very heavy use of the summer, and it appears, it looks like, it sounds like you're really addressing. I love the fact that you're doing landscaping because it's always, it hasn't looked commercial, it looked kind of industrial. It was awful. It was really not a nice looking spot at all, beautiful Montauk. That was like the worst area, and you're really addressing it. I appreciate that. I don't see, I'm looking at the blueprints and at the pictures, a flagpole. Where's that flagpole?
There will be a flagpole, Councilman Dunn. When this application was filed, which was some time ago, that was before you had made your feelings, expressed your feelings to the town. We agree 100% to implement a flagpole. We have basically an idea as to where it will be. 7-Eleven has okayed it already, so we will be providing an amended site plan that includes a flagpole, which will be prominently display the American flag.
You go to the graduations of the Seafood, Montour, Belmore, and always hear the kids that are going to go into the military. And for them to come home, it's just a nice touch. Thank you, I appreciate it.
I do have a follow-up question for you. I would love to pull Gary Hughes out of retirement so he could be our resident expert on the trees and shrubs that we need. Can you explain it in layman's terms, what you plan to do? I saw some of the pictures here, but I would like the residents to feel comfortable that this is going to be appropriately beautiful and not just some tree that's planted and is dead 6 months later.
We have our site engineering firm represented here today, Mr. Dale Koch from Bowler Engineering. I'll let him address that at that.
Good morning. My name is Dale Koch. I'm with the firm Bowler Engineering. We're located at 2929 Expressway Drive North, Hauppauge, New York. And actually, I submitted a card too, so if anyone needs to write anything down, it's on record. So the landscaping, Mr. Feliciotto and Mr. Vanesso did a great job describing the site and all the movements, on-site features. We are proposing some new landscaping that has been designed in a way that I think will really do a good job, not only tying in the neighborhood and showing some landscaping as you're driving down Merrick Road or Wantagh Avenue, but also provide some really adequate screening along the residential properties to the west and north. So along the western property line is probably the most important one. We're proposing 35 new evergreen shrubs. They're proposed right now to be arborvitaes. They're going to be installed at 5 to 6 foot high when they're first installed. So they'll provide a very nice buffer along that western property line. To the north, along Linden Street, we actually went ahead. We're proposing a pretty substantial buffer on that side as well. We're proposing some evergreen trees that'll be a little bit bigger and fuller than the arborvitaes, along with a fence along that curb line, and then another row of evergreen shrubs. So you actually have 2 rows to the north that you can see in this colored site plan here. So all in all, buffering will be very substantial and do a really nice job buffering the parking lot. And then along Wantagh Avenue and Merrick Road, providing some new landscaping, just street trees. There's 6 street trees on Wantagh Avenue that'll be new, and then some fill-in landscaping along the islands that buffer the or that are adjacent to the parking lot.
Mr. Koch, I believe I'm correct in stating that all of these landscaped areas will be irrigated?
That's correct.
So they'll be sprinkled for maintenance in the future?
Yeah, most importantly, when they're first installed, there'll be sprinklers installed to establish the plants.
And the applicant will, of course, accept a condition in a declaration of restricted covenants that any dead or dying planting would be promptly replaced so as with a similar species and similar maturity planting so as to make sure that the property stays in good conditions. I would just note, to add to Mr. Koch's testimony, the difference between what's presently there and what is proposed, There are presently 225 square feet of landscape beds on the site. This will provide 5,840 square feet of landscape beds. There are presently 10 plantings on the site. This will provide 700 plantings on the site. There are presently no street trees whatsoever. This will provide 6 street trees, and as you heard, it'll be all irrigated and properly maintained throughout the year.
I just have one question. I can't really tell by the plans, but I know I'm changing the use from using it as a garage to now going to a convenience store and a gas station. If there's any, just recommending and asking that if there's any change in the amount of hydrants or the position of hydrants on the property. I don't know if they're being moved because of construction. I don't need the answer now. Just if you can coordinate with the Wanto Fire Department so they know. I'm sure Councilwoman Sweeney can get you in touch with them just so they have an idea of the hydrants if they're changing location or not.
Absolutely, and we've already made a submission to the Nassau County Fire Marshal to review the site plan for hydrants and things of that nature, and we will make sure that we also coordinate with Wanto.
Perfect, thank you.
I would also point out that in keeping with what the town likes to see, the applicant will also agree to a condition in the restrictive covenants that there be no sale of alcoholic beverages beyond midnight or before 6 a.m. Other than that, unless the board has any additional questions, that's our direct presentation. I would like the opportunity just to respond to any public comment that may arise.
Certainly. Anthony Selena.
Good morning. Selena, I reside at 3208 Linden Street, the property that is directly next to this proposed site. Just a few things I want to put on. I know there's a lot of disagreement over the 24 hours. My personal opinion is 24 hours is going to keep away a lot of the riffraff. I have a 10-month-old son, as well as an 8-year-old son, and there's a lot of, when they were closed down, because they were closed down for a few months, there was a lot of cars hanging out there, because they meet up there, they go race down the Wanto Parkway. I had to make a couple phone calls to the property owner, what can we do about this? I personally walked over there once or twice and asked them to keep the noise down, drinking, smoking, revving their engines, going back and forth underneath the bridge. It's just a lot of noise. I think the 24 hours will completely stop that. There will be nobody hanging out there. Another thing, I never hear, and I'm directly in my bedroom window just looking out to the back of the deli that's there now. I never hear any dumpster trucks. What I do hear at 3 o'clock in the morning is the tow trucks dropping off cars to the service station, the chains clanking, the hydraulic lifts, the engine starting, so on and so forth. I don't hear any dumpster trucks. I don't even know when they come, to be honest. The visual appeal, I look out my window, fence is knocked down. It just, as everybody knows who lives in the area, it just is not visually appealing. I think the site's going to be way more visually appealing and attract more people to the area, or not say attract more people to the area, but as you're driving by, say this is a nice neighborhood. Because right now, it's, you drive by and it's not okay. I plan on buying this house. That's the plans going forward, because currently right now I rent. There is a plan in place to allow me to buy this house. I have a family. I am spending the next 10, 20, 30 years here. I'm not looking to just come and go. I've been there for 6 years already, and waiting for this to go through. That way I can move forward. So I think overall this is going to make the neighborhood a lot nicer.
Mr. Brennan, can I ask you a question? Is what the gentleman said regarding 24 hours, is that your experience with these types of convenience stores? If it's 24 hours, it helps the community, or what's your feel on that?
Yes, we actually have Mr. Ashish report here. He's one of the principals, and his family has operated the convenience market for many years. What they found, and he can testify to this in greater detail, but just to be short about it, what they found is that when they were 24 hours, they did not have the problems that are being referenced by this gentleman. But when they stopped being 24 hours, that's when cars started to show up at park, that's when loitering occurred, that's when they had some activities that had to be addressed on the property.
That's basically all I have to say. My biggest is the cars hanging out there, the noise at night. It sounds like tin cans with a microphone through it. It's wakes up the baby all night long, wakes up myself all night long. And the visual appeal is just going to be 1,000 times better than what it is now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Salina, and good luck with your plans to buy your home. Charles Barado.
Good morning, Town Supervisor and Town Board. Councilwoman Gooseby, my condolences, and Councilwoman Sweeney, best wishes for full recovery. My name is Charles Barreto. I reside at 2163 Jones Avenue. I'm right around the corner from the subject property. Lived in Wanto for 30 years, and I frankly, after hearing the comments today, I'm really now looking forward not only to the aesthetic improvements to the property, but the traffic safety improvements. Thousands of times through that intersection, and looking forward to that. Really looking forward to the welcome to Wanto sign, the gateway to Jones Beach, replacing the current down. It's run down. The current automotive repair shop is run down, so that's going to be a great site for us. I do know the applicant. I know Adam both personally and professionally. We've done some business together, although I do not have any business interest in this property. He's a very fair-minded businessman. I'm confident, and if we've all seen Belmore, the work that he'll do, he'll do the right job, and I think our community overall is going to be very pleased with the job that he does, and I ask that the board approve the application. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I know you obviously from the Wanto community, and you did not disclose a conflict that we do have with my husband recommending the coffee to you. Did you try it?
I did try the air press, though. I don't know if this is off the record. Hold on yet.
Okay.
I'll give it another try.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Your husband recommended craft beer to me. Should I use myself?
Elizabeth Reed.
Good morning. My name is Elizabeth Greco. I live at 2211 Cypress Street in Wandorf. Madam Supervisor and the board, I appreciate you giving me the time to just say a few words. I've lived in Wandorf for 52 years. I've lived around the corner from this location for the past 24. And my entire life, it has been an eyesore. And I'm sorry, I'm sniffling. I have a cold. But, you know, if nothing else, it drops the property value. And like the gentleman before me, it really, the beautification that they're looking to bring to this corner will just be spectacular, amazing. And, you know, you can't even say enough. Just the traffic alone, just what they're doing for the intersection, you know how many accidents there have been. I feel personally that it will improve it, and also with the off-site on the eastbound on Merrick Road, how they're going to alleviate the traffic, especially at rush hour during the summer, coming off from the beach, coming onto the beach. It's going to be a tremendous asset to Wantaw, and I can't say how appreciative my family and I are at all they are considering. Like as a builder, they don't have to do that. You know, we just are so appreciative of everything that they're looking to do, and we really, really hope you consider doing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Greco, for your feedback. Kevin Egan.
Good morning. Kevin Agan, 3204 Linden Street. I live on the south side of Linden Street, next to Anthony. I'm not going to argue that it's not a nice looking proposal. It certainly is, but I am concerned about it being 24 hours. Currently, all the businesses there close, I think 10 o'clock at latest, and in my experience, it's been pretty quiet, and I like it that way. So, and if you look at any of the other gas stations on Merrick Road, none of them are as big as this proposed one, and none of them are open 24 hours, to my knowledge. Not in Seaford, Massapequa, Belmore, anywhere close to 3 towns. So, that's one thing that I asked them to not have it be a 24-hour operation. Also, the idea of knocking down a house on Linden Street, I don't think that really jogs well with suburban values, from Long Island to, there's nothing wrong with the house. It could just be fixed up. There's a family living there right now. It's really, we only have 7 houses on the block, so it's really going to change the look of the neighborhood if you knock down a house to put up a gas station, regardless of how nice looking the gas station is. I just don't think it's right. Some other concerns I had was the exit onto Linden Street. If nothing else, I'd ask that be removed. This way there can't be any traffic coming onto our block, or having tanker trucks pull onto Linden Street to be able to pull into the gas station. I'm sure they can figure out some way to just have it done.
Are you able to address that specific issue?
I'm sorry.
I would say,
Mr. Benesso, have there been any studies about noise impacts when stations are open 24 hours versus when they close at 10? And could you maybe address the concern about trucks coming in on Linden Street?
I'll let Mr. Filisciotto speak to the truck and transportation issue.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we looked at how the fuel tanker truck, typically it's once, maybe twice per week. I'm sorry,
Please speak into the microphone.
So we looked at the fuel tanker truck. The way we see it coming in terms of its path, would be a right turn in off of Wantal Avenue. The fueling has to unload on the passenger side of the truck. That's the way all fuel drops are done. So that vehicle would make a right turn in, circulate over the fueling tanks, and then proceed to exit out onto Merrick Road by making a right. So there's no intended use for a fuel truck of Linden. It really just doesn't make sense. It's a tight street, and you can adequately perform that maneuver via Wantal Avenue.
Would the applicant be willing to covenant not to allow tanker trucks to exit onto the residential street?
That's fine.
Absolutely. Mr. Filisciotto, there was a discussion, or there was a suggestion that the curb cut be removed on Linden Street. Can you address why that wouldn't be a good idea?
Sure. So one of the things we're doing to promote safety on Merrick Road and Wantal Avenue is to restrict left turn movements from those driveways. There's a little bit of a balance here. Linden Street already allows left turns in and out because it's a public street. While we don't believe that there's going to be a significant amount of left turns, what we don't want to do is completely eliminate the ability for someone to make a left turn if they need to. Again, these types of uses cater to rights in and rights out, but Linden Street provides an important ability to bring someone in, making a left, and put someone back out, making a left. Specifically, if you're a resident and you happen to come in here and make a purchase via Linden Street, you can then make a right turn out and go to Wantal Avenue. So it's an important access point from that reason. Again, it's a tertiary access point. We have it because we have frontage there and it's important for left turns, but it's not going to be the primary use, and I don't believe its location will have an impact. There's already a driveway there today.
Thank you. Mr. Vanessa, do you have any information about noise at 24-hour stations?
We don't have any specific information to that effect, but I would point out 2 things. One, 24-hour operation.
Could you speak into the
Yes, I'm sorry. 24-hour operation is permitted on this site, and in fact has existed on this site in the past with the convenience market. That's not an issue before this board. And in fact, the 7-Eleven itself is not even an issue before this board. If this was not a gasoline service station proposal in conjunction with the 7-Eleven, a 7-Eleven of this size or larger could go on this site. As of right, it would not be before this board. So the 24-hour operation aspect of the 7-Eleven is really not it's the tail wagging the dog in this case. The fact of the matter is, as part of a gasoline service station, it comes before this board, but the hours of operation really don't come into play. And again, if this development doesn't go in, any number of other uses could go in and could have 24-hour operations. So, and in the past, this site has been the site of 24-hour convenience use. So I don't think that really there's a big change occurring here as a result of that.
Well, I have to disagree that there's not a big change occurring because I bought my house 5 years ago, and there used to be a Hess on the other side of Linden Street and Wanta Avenue. When I bought the house, that had already closed down. I was told there would not be another gas station there again. So, I mean, you know, in my mind, it is a big change because now I'm going to have to live next to a gas station. My property values are going to go down. There is somewhat of a danger element. You know, could have the tanks leak or something like that. And yeah, I mean that's really, those are my main concerns. I mean, if nothing else, if our opinion is in this way, I ask that they at least maybe plant more trees along the western property line, maybe a little taller, because right now, I'm going to be in my backyard looking at this gas station, possibly having people looking at me. The privacy is certainly a concern.
I would encourage you to speak with Mr. Bonesso about the landscaping.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And please stay in touch with my office. Marcus, can you raise your hand? Is Marcus here or Alex?
I've spoken to Alex from the
Okay.
office.
This is the gentleman you mentioned to me this morning. Okay, so let's just stay in touch on these issues.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Don Orlando?
My name is Don Orlando. I live at 3205 Linden Street. I have a couple of concerns. One is the location of the gas station is coming closer to Linden Street. When the gas station used to be there a few years back, it was right off Merrick Road. Okay, farther back than where they're going to put the tanks now and everything like that. It was closer to Merrick Road. I wonder why they're not putting it back where it was.
Would you like to address that, Mr. Bonesso?
As I understand it, the prior gas station had 2 fueling stations. It was situated down closest to Merrick Road. And that was only on that lowest lot of the 3 lots that make up this property. So consequently, that was the operation down there, allowing for 2 other operations to occur on the other lots. This proposed redevelopment occupies the entire premises with one use, a 7-Eleven convenience store and gasoline service station. So good design calls for spreading out the use to some extent. Now that said, there is still a significant distance between Linden Street and the northernmost MPD, so that all activity still stays as close to the south end of the property as possible, but still allows for better site circulation and site design.
Okay, my other concern is when they took out that station, they took out the tanks and everything like that, and they removed all the soil that was in there and took it away. So that just tells me that that was contaminated. My next thing is where this new station going to go? Is that ground okay? I didn't see anybody doing borings or anything like that, and I think that should be done. Okay, that's a concern of mine. Also,
Mr. Bonesso, can you speak to the contamination issue?
Yes, DEC has signed off on this property. This property is clean for all intents and purposes. Any new installation of tanks, which will be part of the application, they will be state-of-the-art, double-walled fiberglass underground storage tanks with monitors on them, so that if there's a breach in one of the walls, a monitor tells the station owner that there's a problem. So problems with contamination are much less likely now than they were back when the initial gas and service station was there.
Okay. Saying a fuel truck is not going to enter in off Wantor Avenue as you come down Wantor Avenue heading south, and the fuel truck's coming down, and here's the new gas station. His tendency is going to turn into local industry. I've lived there for 30 some odd years, and I see trucks coming in that little thing now. They're smaller, but the deliveries that come in, they come in that way. They don't come in off Linden Street, off Wantor Avenue where it's wider, okay? And number two, when they address, they're going to put up dead-end signs. We have 2 dead-end signs on, there's a pole here and a pole here at the beginning of Linden Street. This is dead-end. Then on top of that, there's no entrance to Parkway signs. At the end of the block, there's this huge dead-end sign. I sit there during the summertime, working in my front yard and stuff like that. When I tell you, easily, there's 20 to 30 cars a day coming down there thinking it's the entrance to the Parkway. There's already stop signs. People don't read signs. They don't. They're too busy on their phones or whatever. And it gets to be scary. Now, you're going to have this gas station. The traffic right now is a nightmare sometimes. When we come, I try to go out on Linden Street in the early morning, not too early, like 7:30, 8 o'clock, and you have these cars waiting for the light or backed up well past my block, okay? So I don't know how you're going to change the traffic thing. The lanes aren't going to get wider. You know, I mean, what are you going to do? I don't buy that you're not going to be blocking the block, okay? Plus, I think having that big of a gas station there, that's going to knock the property value of my house down. And I have one other thing. They said something about dumpsters, okay? Number one, right now, the only dumpster I see on that property is closer to the gas station, the repair shop, nowhere near Linden Street. Okay? When Anthony's house is there, he bought his land. Now, the new proposal...
Mr. Orlando, I'm sorry, your time is up, but you can talk to Mr. Bonessa about your concerns about the dumpsters.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just separately, sir, if you could touch base with Alex, raise your hands, and then we can address your concerns as well. We'll set up a meeting.
Donald Calvis.
Good morning. It's Donald Camphor.
Sorry.
I live at 3217 Linden Street. I've lived there for so far all my life, which is 70 years. Just a couple of points. There was never, ever a 24-hour convenience store on that property. And I've lived there all that time. I've never seen it. As far as the traffic goes, that corner is the worst corner around. That where they have the, they want to make that lane bigger on Merritt Road to make the left turn when you're heading east. People are going to back up in that lane to turn into 7-Eleven. People are going to back up behind them who want to make the turn up north on Wantor Avenue. They're not going to be able to make that turn because people are going to turn left into the 7-Eleven. I don't know how you get around that. I don't think, other than blocking the road off so that you can't make that turn, you're not going to be able to stop that. As far as coming out on Linden Street, there is a cut there now. People do come out of the convenience store. They used to cut through the Hess station to get onto the parkway at Poplar Street. They're still going to do that. They're going to come out of there. They're going to come out of that 7-Eleven. They're going to make a left. Even though there's a sign that they want to put up, as we all know, people in New York sometimes don't pay attention to signs when they drive. I'm sure they're going to make that turn. This 24-hour station, I don't know who's going to go in there at 2 o'clock in the morning, because thankfully, at that time in the morning, there is not a lot of traffic on Montford Avenue or Merrick Road. So I don't see the financial viability of having a 24-hour gas station. I don't even know how the 7-Elevens make out by Mill Pond on Merrick Road and the one on Merrick Road by the 7th Precinct. There just isn't that much traffic all the time. Now, we already have 3 7-Elevens within 1.25 miles of this location. I'm trying to figure out why we need a 4th. I think that what they want to do is a little over the top of this area. I think it's overdevelopment that's really not necessary. We don't need this in this area.
Mr. Philippou, for that turning lane off Merrick Road, is there a turning light there?
Yes, there is a green arrow, if you will. That services that existing eastbound left turn lane.
Turn here, and you have westbound traffic, right?
Yes.
They can't make that turn.
That's correct. So that turn is prohibited.
They can't. This turn into the 7-Eleven is prohibited?
So the Nassau County Department of Public Works has jurisdiction over Merrick Road. We have jurisdiction over our driveway design. So as part of the 239F process, which is the county's process as part of the site plan review, they've required us to post signs in accordance with federal regulations to restrict the left turn.
Into this?
Correct. And out of that driveway as well.
That would be the first time I've ever saw a sign make a difference, I tell you.
Yeah, you know, I mean, you're not going to prevent 100% of traffic. There's always going to be that rogue driver who does what he or she wants. I can't tell you that it's going to work 100% of the time, but absolutely. But the intent of this is to restrict that maneuver, and based on my experience, you know, you're in the 90th percentile of prevention when you put a sign on. You're not going to get 100%, but you're never going to get 100%. If I may, if you're done, sir, I don't know.
Oh, I just had one other point. I just heard something about parking on Linden Street this morning, which I hadn't heard before. Is there anything that they want to restrict parking on Linden Street?
We have proposed a no stopping any time along the frontage of Linden Street.
You already put the signs though. Yeah.
That was proposed and approved by the town.
And you didn't have to notify us about that?
I'm not sure what the notification
It's front of our property.
It's a public hearing, I believe.
It's a public hearing.
Madam Supervisor, if I may, there were a couple other issues that came up just for the record. For the dead end sign, the reason why they are mixed in terms of being effective or not is because they're placed several feet onto Linden Street. So if someone turns onto Linden Street, it's too late at that point. What we're proposing to do is put dead end signs on the street name sign. So the street name sign says Linden Street, and above it, there would be a little plaque that says dead end. It's not commonly done, but in this particular instance, there's been so much concern over this that it's something that we can do. Again, it's the configuration of the roadway network. No use is going to be able to fix this issue. It's a dead end road near a parkway. But what we're trying to do is do everything we can to make it very, very clear that Linden Street is a dead end roadway. With respect to the truck turn, we actually experimented with the truck, not in real life, in computer modeling, trying to use Linden Street. It just doesn't fit geometrically. The truck just can't make the turn. So we're prepared to covenant that it won't use it, and it will use Wantagh, which is the path of least resistance. I think that covered the items that I heard that I wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Thank you. I do not have any other slips on this public hearing. Is there anyone else who'd like to be heard?
Meredith Baldwin, resident. Just a couple of things. I'm always interested when there's something that's going to address road improvement. So I'm just curious as to why it takes these type of projects to get the curbing and things of that nature on the roadways that we pay so many such high taxes for. I'm always appreciative of Councilman Dunn's question with regard to the flag. I'm just always also curious as to why our local and county governments don't seem to monitor the condition of the flags that fly over these facilities that we enter.
The veterans organizations usually give us a call, or a veteran, or a widow of a veteran will call and say, did you see the flag on such and such a corner? And we'll pay more attention to it, and then we'll either donate the flag to them, I'll pay out of my own pocket to put the flag up properly, or they'll, no, we'll take care of it, and they take care of it. So usually it's done just by people being aware of it and letting us know
Well, I had to call attention to the deplorable condition of the flag that was flying over the Nassau County offices, the Theodore Roosevelt building before, and that flag is on its way out again. So again, I'm putting it out, putting notice out there. But I'm curious as to why we can't have something maybe inside the facility that might be supportive of our veterans on a regular basis. And I brought it up to the district managers for 7-Eleven, but it seems that we seem to get quite an increase in the number of 7-Eleven and Bola type facilities that are coming to the area. And I think it would be conducive for us to start looking at doing something that incorporates some type of aspect for our veterans in that community. And also the disabled parking spots. I also noticed that there's always we're in compliance with regard to having the number of spots, but I would also ask those of you who are representing our interests to put that out there, that maybe we can go above and beyond compliance, because we do have residents in these communities that they're coming into in record number who have challenges and may need more than the in compliance number of spots. Lastly, because I definitely want to stay on my time, what is the benefits to the community for this in terms of jobs? Do we have a ongoing buy Long Island or support local suppliers? How many jobs are actually being created? What, again, is the utilization of residents in the community as far as workers? Again, what are their protections for these workers if it's going to be a 24-hour facility? I never seem to hear those questions being asked with regard to these types of projects. And we do have private developers and homeowners who have some projects that cannot seem to get on the calendar, and I have a concern about that. But if we can speak to the issue as it pertains to more veteran support, more jobs and community development, I would be very encouraged by these types of projects. Thank you.
When you came up, I thought about that immediately. I was thinking, get in touch with Mr. Becker, who's with the Department of Occupation Resources, to get in touch with Bola and 7-Eleven, because a lot of them are family run, and they have family members always, rotating in. But when there's not family members, maybe they can reach out to do our goal. We'll have veterans that are looking for positions, and maybe even the schools too.
Set up a coffee nook. I mean, something, again, that it ties it into the community that they're serving. And residents did bring up some concerns about the number of gas stations that we have around residential areas. It's something that we need to be aware of.
Ms. Meredith, you were correct. I should have asked about the number of people that this facility plans on employing. So can I ask you now how many you expect?
We're advised by 7-Eleven that there will be a total of 15 employees that will range from full-time to part-time. There will always be at least 2 employees there at any given time, but it should be 15 total employees for the site, which is actually more than what is employed on the site presently. The auto repair facility has 2, if not 3, employees presently, and I'm told by Mr. Kapoor that the convenience market typically has 1 or 2 employees presently.
And is there some incentive to buy local, like local beverages, resources, something that says Long Island, purchase Long Island, hire vets,
something like that.
That I can't speak.
Buy local is the Chamber of Commerce is pushing that all over the place. Every community has, every Chamber of Commerce says, please buy, shop locally. And that's something we've been pushing, because we all belong to the Chamber of Commerce. I belong to multiple Chambers of Commerce, but that's what we're pushing all the time.
Exactly, but I don't hear it here, and it's not on the record, and I don't see developers who are coming, who are basically getting benefits from those of us who are paying taxes, in essence, to say we are buying local, or there is a covenant that we're going to say we're buying local Long Island tea or something that speaks to helping the residents that are here to stay here so we can pay these taxes and keep these homes.
Mr. Mann, I know that you attended the Wantagh Seaford Homeowners Association meeting. Could you also reach out to the Wantagh Chamber of Commerce? They're really active in the community, and I think that would be well received. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I'll just add that Adam Mann, 2 Jericho Plaza, Jericho, New York, 11753. Councilman, thank you. I will just add to that, we have met with the Wantagh Chamber of Commerce previously, but we would be glad to continue to meet with them.
Great, thank you.
Of course.
Thank you, Mr. Mann. Just in closing, I did want to address a couple of the comments that were made in opposition. Again, with regard to the 24-hour operation, this is something that is permitted on the site. If a 7-Eleven went in here as of right, it would do so as of right, and it could operate 24 hours. This is a unique development in that we have a large site that is going to be used for one use, and it's a very good, efficient development of the property. There was a comment made that this is too large a site. The fact that it's large is good if it's limited to one main activity. Here it's the 7-Eleven convenience store and gas station. We did a comparison because we thought this topic might come up, and I'll hand it up to the board. It's a sheet that we call Convenience Store and Gasoline Service Station Site Comparisons, and it looks at the size of gasoline service stations with convenience markets in and around the town of Hempstead. This site, as indicated, is 36,200 square feet. We're proposing 5 MPDs. We're going to have 22 parking stalls, and we're proposing a building that's just under 3,000 square feet. Just down Merrick Road in Belmore, there's an 11,000 square foot site, which is about 1/4 of an acre. We're over 8/10 of an acre. That has a building just slightly smaller than ours. It has 4 MPDs, and it has only 6 parking stalls. At 2670 Merrick Road, you have a 15,000 plus square foot site with 5 MPDs and 4 parking stalls. 2475 Hempstead Turnpike in East Meadow, a 25,000 square foot site. So it's a little bit bigger, but it's not still approaching ours. A 3,100 square foot, 3,200 square foot building, and 8 MPDs, 8, which that means 16 fueling stations, 10 parking spaces. 791 Stewart Avenue in Garden City, 18,000 square foot property, half the size of ours, 6 MPDs, 13 parking stalls. So I think you see that our site represents a significantly positive development in terms of site design and site circulation. And in terms of the deltas of what you're getting versus what you have there presently, I've already talked about the amount of landscaping that's going to increase, the amount of drainage structures that are going to increase. Right now, the number of the building square footage on the property totals 7,284 square feet. That's the auto repair building, the convenience store, and the single-family home. This is going to reduce the amount of building square footage by 4,288 square feet. You have 3 auto repair bays on the property that are going away. You have actually a reduction in the convenience store square footage, because the present convenience market in Delhi is 3,545 square feet. This will be 2,996 square feet. So when all is said and done, you have a significant difference in terms of what's there presently and what's going to be there. You have an aesthetically much more beautiful site, you have a better designed site, and you get the bonus of significant off-site traffic and parking improvements that the applicant will be paying for with his dollar. Now, in closing, I was asked by all of these parties just to read into the record a few letters of support, and I'll read them in pertinent part. From the Belmore Preservation Group, they indicate that they would like to lend their support to the application of Wanto 3215. As a member of the Belmore Preservation Group and Belmore Civics, we have known the applicant, Adam Mann, seated to my right, for over 5 years. He and his organization have always held the community's view.
Councilor, how many letters do you have?
Just a total of 4.
Can you
I'd be happy
compare
to
the record?
submit. I'd be happy to
Are
submit.
they all favorable to your application?
Yes, they are all favorable.
And by the way, I have to say that this, the presentation of this application was very well done with a lot of information. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. You can give those letters to Ms. Hanson, and she'll make them available to us. And thank you for this comprehensive analysis. It's quite useful.
Thank you.
Working with the community too, that's most important. I hope some of them are here, right?
Councilwoman Guzman.
All right, I do not have any other slips on this item. May I have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to withhold the decision. I'd like to thank the Wanto residents for coming down today in their free time and giving comments, and my office looks forward to working with them, and thank you to the applicants for a very thorough presentation.
Second motion.
Madam
Sorry,
Clerk?
I said withhold decision, I meant reserve decision. Sorry. Is that good? We're good?
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Councilman Ambrosino. Councilman Blakeman. Councilman Diaz-Pazito. Councilman Dunn. Councilwoman King Sweeney. Senior Councilwoman Gooseby. Supervisor Gillen.
Aye. Madam Clerk, will you please call the decision calendar?
There are 4 items on the decision calendar. The first is the application of JAS USA Inc. to include premises existing and extend premises into the GSS district to maintain existing repair bays and snack shop, installation of a 24-foot by 54-foot canopy over the existing pump islands with lighting, vacuum station, air station, dumpsters, enclosures, and various other site improvements, including paving, curbing, landscaping, and the relocation of an existing curb cut along Chester Street, located at 1198 Front Street, Uniondale, southeast corner of Front Street and Chester Street.
May I have a motion on this item?
I move the decision and recommend its adoption.
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Councilman Ambrosino. Councilman Blakeman. Councilman Diaz-Pazito. Councilman Dunn. Councilwoman King Sweeney. Senior Councilwoman Gooseby. Supervisor Gillen.
Aye. Madam Clerk, please call the next item.
The next item is the application of Shady Point LLC Special Exception Public Garage to permit an operation of an automobile repair shop and automobile body repair, in addition to the installation of a spray booth for painting of automobiles in West Hempstead, northeast corner of Hamilton and Cherry Valley Avenues.
May I have a motion on this item?
West Hempstead.
Move the decision to be granted.
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Councilman Ambrosino. Councilman Blakeman.
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Pazito.
Aye.
Councilman Dunn.
Aye.
Senior Councilwoman Gooseby. Supervisor Gillen.
Aye. Madam Clerk, please call the next item.
Application of Shady Point LLC for a revocation of a declaration of restricted covenants dated December 20th, 1995, affecting real property located at 160 Cherry Valley Avenue in West Hempstead, near northeast corner of Hamilton and Cherry Valley Avenues.
May I have a motion on this item?
Move that the decision be granted.
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Councilman Ambrosino. Councilman Blakeman. Councilman Diaz-Pazito. Councilman Dunn. Senior Councilwoman Gooseby. Supervisor Gillen.
Aye. Madam Clerk, please call the next item.
application of Bola EM Realty LLC for a variance from the provisions of GSS ordinance and to include an existing gasoline service station within GSS district and install 2 additional storage tanks, each with a capacity of 12,000 gallons, located at 85-101 Hempstead Turnpike, West Hempstead, southeast corner, Hempstead Turnpike and Broad Street.
May I have a motion on this item?
I move the decision granted.
I second the motion.
Madam Clerk?
Councilman Diaz-Pasito.
Aye.
Councilman Dunn.
Aye.
Councilwoman King Sweeney.
Aye.
Senior Councilwoman Gooseby.
Aye.
Supervisor Gillen.
Aye. Madam Clerk, will you please call the administrative calendar?
There are items 7 through 50 on the administrative calendar. I also have an item of an urgent or emergency nature. This item is resolution authorizing the execution of an agreement between the State of New York and the Town of Hempstead for the multimodal number 4 program related to highway improvements within the Town of Hempstead, Nassau County, New York. This will be item number 51 on the administrative calendar.
Supervisor, if I may, I also have another handed resolution from the board members. Regards to a leave of absence from the title of Superintendent of Sanitation and appointment of John Conroy as Commissioner to the Department of Sanitation.
Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll as to whether we will add this item to the agenda?
Councilman Ambrosino.
Aye.
Councilman Blakeman.
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Pasito.
Aye.
Councilman Dunn.
Aye.
Councilwoman King Sweeney.
Not here. Just Supervisor, she's going out.
Okay. So, I'll get back to her. Senior Councilwoman Gooseby.
Aye.
Supervisor Gillen.
I vote no. Councilwoman, the clerk has called the roll on whether or not we'll be adding item 52 to the agenda, an emergency resolution.
My turn to vote.
Councilwoman King Sweeney.
Biological break? Aye.
I would now like to break into an executive session to discuss item number 52. This is something that was brought to my attention about 30 minutes before the board meeting. We'll take a 15-minute adjournment while we break into executive session. Okay, we will continue our meeting. If you would just let the record reflect that there was a vote taken on whether we would break into executive session. All parties voted in favor of it. And now, Madam Clerk, I would ask you to call the roll to go back into regular session.
Councilman Ambrosino. Councilman Blakeman. Councilman Diaz-Pasito. Councilman Dunn.
Aye.
Councilwoman King Sweeney. Senior Councilwoman Gooseby. Supervisor Gillen.
Aye. Okay, so we've had the administrative calendar called. Items 7 through now 52 has been added to the calendar. Would any of the council members like to sever any items on the administrative calendar?
Madam President, I have a question on 2 items.
Yes.
Wait, there's a motion in a second. Okay, I apologize.
So would anybody like to sever any items on the administrative calendar?
No, but Supervisor, I would like to point something out that in the past I have recused myself on applications regarding Bola because they have done business with my prior law firm. I'm no longer associated with that law firm, so I am not recusing myself. I just wanted to clear that up if there's any confusion with respect to that.
All right, I would like to sever item number 52. So may I have a motion on the administrative calendar?
First of all, she's at 7:52, what do we do? We don't just leave, she can't just set it just like that. Do we have to vote for that?
City Councilwoman, your motion, I think, would be for moving the administrative calendar with the exception of item 52.
I move the administrative calendar with the exception of 52. And it's intact.
Second.
I have a number of slips of those.
Madam Mr. President, if there are any questions on item 50, on item 43. Commissioner Delaney? How are you, Commissioner?
Good morning, Commissioner.
How are you? This just is a question regarding the category of qualified caretaker for these bay houses. Who makes that determination? What are the criteria?
On the bay houses?
On the bay house, item 43, I believe it is.
Who makes the criteria?
Yeah, what is the criteria and who makes that determination that a person is a qualified caretaker?
Well, it's a volunteer position, with the assumption that after 3 years of working on the bay house, fixing it, taking care of it, paying the lease and insurance, he would then be able to take it over from the family who no longer wants it. It was done specifically to keep the bay houses in operation, since it represents things that have gone back in time to the colonial era. And the town board in the 1980s decided that it was right and just proper and fitting to hold on to these as long as they possibly could.
I think that goal is very laudable. I question, it seems a little arbitrary to designate someone a qualified caretaker. I'm not saying it is, it just appears to be. And my second question is the amount of annual rent. It just seems very, very low, given the fact that while these may not be ideal living for everyone, $900 a year to live in a bay house seems a little. So I'm going to request my fellow members, maybe we could just adjourn this, get some questions answered to the next meeting.
Councilman, I think you raised some good questions, and I think we need to get some answers, and so I would second that motion.
So separate, postpone.
All right, Madam Clerk, now if you call the roll on adjourning item number 43.
Councilman Ambrosino. Councilman Blakeman.
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Pasito. Aye. Councilman Dunn.
Aye.
Councilwoman King Sweeney.
Aye.
Senior Councilwoman Gooseby. Aye. Supervisor Hill.
Aye. Okay, I have a number of slips on the administrative calendar. Felix Procacci.
Felix Procacci, 1165 Bond Street, Franklin Square, New York. On item number 44, the personnel decisions, there's Alexa Sherrill being appointed to the supervisor's office. Is this a new hire?
It is. I lost a couple members of my staff. She's replacing someone who's left.
Does she also work for the town?
I'm proposing to bring her in to work for the town.
She doesn't currently work for the town now.
She's subject to the board approval.
Okay. I just want to comment on Cheryl Petrie. She's being transferred again. This is a wonder why. I mean, I don't want to answer to this because I'm not going to get an honest answer. But she was transferred last year at the end, and then she was transferred again out of the receiver of tax's office. Now she's being transferred again to the controller's office. I just question when someone with that big of a salary gets, a musical employee there, does you wonder whether she really has a job, for this town, or is she just being protected? And, we're talking about losing money for New York State and everything, and I know everyone's going to be up in arms about that, but, we do seem to waste a lot of money and things aren't really clarified, we say, okay, it's a good thing, everything's good. But then when the residents, besides me, ask for explanations, oh, we can't discuss it, so it's just, and then there's a Paulette, I can't pronounce the last name, being added to the minority legislative aid, what's that?
Works for me now.
Okay, were you hiring a new person?
I have a vacancy, yes.
Another person, is this an addition or is this a replacement? So you're replacing somebody? Okay. And he hasn't been on the calendar for a while, Felice Quineri. Last time he was on the calendar, his salary went to $145 or something like that, and it made the paper because I told the press about it. Now, without resolution for the last several years, I go through DC New York, his salary went up to $11,000 roughly. Once again, are these really necessary to make these large expenditures in personnel? And how can you argue with the state cutting funds when you just give away money to people making $145 like it's candy,
Ms. Hanson, if you could just stop the clock for a minute. Mr. Conroy, would you like to come forward? Have you looked at all these personnel actions?
Good morning, Supervisor and Town Council.
Good morning.
As a matter of practice, my office looks at every one of these PARs to determine whether or not there are funds available.
And is there money in the budget for all of the increases in salaries and new hires in the respective departments?
With the exception of two that I'm aware of, Conservation of Waterways, there are 5 PARs worth about $18,000, of which there are no monies in the budget for that. The Minority District, Councilwoman Gooseby, it's probably a timing difference, but I am not aware of a vacancy in your department.
I got somebody else who would, I'll tell you about it.
Okay. On a prorated basis, the new hire that you're recommending at this point is worth about $75,000 for the year. In the event that monies in the budget don't come available by way of a retirement or a termination or what have you, as a matter of practice, what we do is at the end of the year, we cluster all of our financial positions as it relates to every line item in the budget, whether or not there's a surplus or there's a deficit. And then what we do is we appropriate from fund balance the amount we need to cover those expenditures.
Well, Mr. Conroy, I would like to propose that we should address these shortfalls at the next budget at the next board meeting. And I think I would ask you to please try to find funding in the 2019 budget to cover some of the items where there are shortfalls. I don't think we should go to our reserve funds to cover the shortfalls on these dollars, especially since we're already supposedly going to see a savings of $8.1 million from staffing. I have no problem with these requests whatsoever, and I'm glad to hear that the majority of them are funded. But I want you to try to look and find ways to pay for these items and pay for these salaries within the 2019 budget. Could you work with my office on doing that?
Absolutely, Supervisor.
Thank you.
Mr. Conroy, if I could just ask a question. In regards to the, you said that there was not funds available for the Conservation and Waterways. As far as I understood, discussing with Rich Regina this morning, those are due to prior union arbitration. Is that correct? Some of the raises we're dealing with something from the union.
I think these changes are being made to have people working within their proper title, and maybe Commissioner, if you'd like to speak to that.
There was some sort of grievance issue or something.
I can comment, I believe, on one of them where it was a trainee that through a natural progression would be upgraded to, but I don't have the particulars on all the others.
Okay.
That was my understanding, that we're trying to correct people who are actually working out of title and put them into their proper title. Commissioner, does that sound right to you?
Or maybe Mr. Salmon?
Supervisor, that's correct.
Okay.
All right, so the town attorney said that that's correct, so thank you. But I just ask that you find a way to find funding for it within the departmental budget, and that we can maybe put forward a resolution to allocate those funds to pay for these salary changes.
I will absolutely, Supervisor, we endeavor to do that at all costs, but if in the event we do find it, it's going to require a town board resolution to move those monies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Procacci, you may continue.
Well, I suggested this many, many years ago, and it kind of fell on deaf ears, probably do today too. I always ask for some sort of justification for some of these salaries, because, you know, the comment, I publish the salaries every year on my website. It's very hard to get it off the state's website. And people always come to me and they say, look, these salaries are unheard of in my industry. Everybody who works in private industry, even if you just go to North Hempstead and look at identical job positions, they get the exact same positions except you're further north. It's unheard of. And I think we need to square these, and not just because the money's available, that doesn't mean we should give it. You know, because it should be based on market value. As simple as that. And just one more thing.
Felix, I'd like to respond to that. First of all, you know, a lot of people don't realize this is America's largest township. We have close to 800,000 people. If we were a city, we'd be the second largest city in the state of New York. We're over 2.5 times the size of Buffalo. We're over 3 times the size of Rochester. We're probably 4 times the size of Syracuse. We're much bigger than Yonkers. And the fact of the matter is, I would venture to guess that our staffing is well below any one of those cities. But because we're called a town, we have to provide more with less. And we do provide more with less in the town of Hempstead. And every hire we make, every promotion that we make, every salary increase we make, we do it within the constraints of the budget, bearing in mind that we have to keep good people. You're not going to get good people to work for the town of Hempstead if you're not going to pay them a fair wage, and you're not going to give them a path to where they can get promotions and increase, you know, their livelihood throughout the course of their career. So, you know, I think you don't take that into consideration when you criticize us, because I think we run very efficiently and very lean here in the town compared to those other municipalities.
Well, just let me respond on account of you accusing me of this.
I'm not accusing you of anything.
Well,
I'm just saying
you are.
I'm just saying maybe you didn't take that into consideration.
No, I definitely take that into consideration. At Averill Park, which I coach track there very often, we spent, the town spent 6 to 8 months fixing a drainage problem. They had put dry wells, there's some dry wells. It took months and months of mess, dirt, everything. I had pictures of it. I sent it to the supervisor, I think even before she's a candidate, before she was supervisor. And at the end of the day, after all that mess, after all that time, when it rains, we call it the Averill Park Lake. There's 2 lakes. They dropped brand new dry wells, dropped within the last year and a half. Brand new dry wells, and a lot of work went into it, and the job sucked. Okay? And you don't take that into consideration. I'm sorry to say.
Felix, as a matter of fact...
Who got punished for it?
Okay, I do take that into consideration. As a matter of fact, I'm also aware that because of that situation that we've had to pump out Averill Park when it has gathered too much water. Apparently, we have an issue there. We have been dealing with it. It hasn't been 100% successful, but I think the commissioner's on top of it. I think that we will find a solution to the problem at Averill Park.
Well, they did.
We have to move on, Mr. McCarthy. Sorry.
I'm sorry, but they paved the park before they did the drainage issue. They did it backwards. You fix the drainage problem first, then you do the paving. They have to.
Mr. Procacci.
I'll look into that, Felix. I wasn't aware.
It doesn't get taken care of.
Thank you.
And I would like to say to you too, my staff works very, very hard. Many of them work without pay, okay? They don't get paid for everything that they do. So I vouch for them 100%, and I think if you look, you'll see that I pay less in my councilman district than others do. And we have many more problems to solve than they.
Mike Cassia.
Michael Cassio, 193 Birch Street, Oceanside. So we know the supervisor will be putting a proposal
to audit and possibly overhaul the building department. And we would strongly urge that the board to vote yes on the proposal.
Mr. Cassian, that's not on the calendar today, so you would have to reserve those comments. It's not on the administrative calendar, so you'd have to reserve those comments for public comment,
Oh,
for
okay.
the miscellaneous part.
Yes, so why was I called out?
You were in my administrative calendar file,
all right.
that's why.
I will say that for public.
All right, I'll put you in that file, thank you.
Sorry.
Valerie Lamb.
Valerie Lamb Baldwin. First and foremost, I want to just extend my condolences to Senior Councilwoman Gooseby. I am very sorry for the loss of your brother. And also, Councilwoman Erin King Sweeney, I'm sorry to hear about your latest challenge and ailment, but I sincerely wish you the best recovery, and I know that you will be, 100% again. And I have done a lot of work with different foundations, including Pink Tie FACT, which stands for Find a Cure Today. And I'm a pretty good fundraiser. Pink Tie we got from 325 attendees and about 100,000 in revenue the first year to 1,800 attendees and 350,000 the second year. So I'm relatively involved, and I would like to also let you know you inspired me to get a mammogram. Anyway, moving on. So regarding item number 32, the scent machine and that contract, I'm in favor of that being severed because, as we did inform Supervisor Gillen over a year ago, that was a surface and cosmetic solution versus actually cleaning up after the animals. And within the kennel, there's a lot of times people cite feces and urine, etc. And this strikes me as a pattern where instead of getting to all of the things that she promised to fix, she wanted to make sure that the vets were qualified and competent. She wanted to make sure that she wanted to make it a no-kill shelter. She wanted to also bring back Diane Madden into the animal shelter. And, all of these promises just continue to go unfulfilled. And instead, we get a $1,500 air freshener. Like, that's going to help anything, because it's not. Councilwoman Erin King Sweeney, you are my councilwoman, and I'm grateful for that. And I know that the shelter is also in your district, so I look forward to working with you again and more frequently so that we can accomplish some really great things. As we all know, Supervisor Gillen, when she was running and campaigning, accused the animal shelter of being riddled with, her words, abuse, which is a crime, mismanagement, which is something that is grounds for termination in terms of, employment, and riddled with patronage jobs. She also accuses the board of being corrupt, and she has still not apologized for doing so. My only question is,
Can you stick to the administrative calendar, please? We're talking about a resolution to terminate a contract for Ascent.
I knew she would do that. Yeah, so I vote against that. I'm hoping that everyone, I vote for severing the contract. And again, I hope that we can start to address the bigger issues that Supervisor Gillen did address and accuse the shelter of. And she's going to try to say that she was repeating a rumor, but I would never hold a press conference to repeat a rumor.
Thank you for your comments. Mita Meriday?
Mita Meriday, former resident. Just need a clarification with regard to the executive session. What was the outcome with 52? Because I'm confused.
52 has been severed, so you'll have an opportunity to speak about that separately if you'd like.
Thank you. Okay. Going over my notes here. Okay. Again, with regard to item 32, with that termination, does this mean that the last line it says authorizing payment for fees due and owing? If the work was not satisfactory or up to par or whatever, is there an option to do any type of clawback for any of the funds that is...
Mr. Roth, pursuant to contract, we are required to make that payment, $327. Item 32, terminating the contract with the scent provider at the animal shelter. And Deputy Commissioner,
We're paying them for their services up to date, and we're terminating the contract. The contract has a termination provision in it, so we're paying them up for the work they did, and we're terminating the contract because they're looking at other avenues to accomplish the same thing.
so we are legally required to pay that
Yes,
payment.
so it's a legal requirement. Yes. Okay, but have there been any complaints or any reason why we don't have to pay them that money?
No, we're paying them for the work they did to date. And the department is looking for other alternatives to continue the work, but the contract had a termination clause, so we exercised it.
Right. Okay. All right, regarding item 35 and 36, I do appreciate the board extending that because we still have a number of residents, particularly those in the South Shore along the water, who need all the resources and support that they can get to get back into their homes. So I do support that and encourage that we continue to do whatever is necessary so that our residents can be made whole and that we address that issue of the clawbacks from FEMA and other agencies that are trying to further add to the load that these residents who are still paying taxes on homes that they can't live in. So again, I applaud you for that. I have a question about 27, just in terms of where it says the New York State Division of Youth Grant for Provision of Youth Services. I'm just curious as to why is that under the Department of Planning and Economic Development?
Commissioner, would you like to answer that question?
Supervisor, members of the board, my department acts as a pass-through of those funds. They're state funds given to the county. The individual, in this case a village, makes a request each year for these funds and simply pass through.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. 40, authorizing joint funding agreement for services, Title Gauge, saying that the water quality conservation, I think Councilman Esposito mentioned earlier, I think, and I'm probably paraphrasing, forgive me, but as it pertains to needing the resources for our water conservation, I mean, I think addressing the contamination and contaminants in our region is vital and important. And pointing out earlier to the statement made by Aaron King Sweeney, one of the things that was noted in this region with regard to the increase in the cancers that we have, and me being a 9/11 first responder, and I've got about 10 certified conditions with that, COPD being high among them, that we really need to make sure that we have the resources in place to address those types of situations, as well as something that I had mentioned, sidebar, improving our emergency management. As Councilman Wakeman pointed out, the size and depth of the town of Hempstead, you know, if we have to be a township, we can act in the responsibility of a coordinated city to protect the interests of our residents as best as possible. And lastly, since I do want to, again, be mindful of the time period, when you talk about hiring and things of that nature, in terms of putting information to the table, I've definitely done that and never even got consideration from the township as far as that type of thing, but it's all good. There's a purpose for everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Diane Madden?
Diane Madden, East Meadow. First and foremost, Senior Councilwoman Gooseby, terribly sorry for yet another personal loss. Very sorry. And Aaron, thank you for that testimony. Typical of you, very brave. You're a lot like your dad, and My ears perked up, not just when you mentioned the recovery and the expectation for that, but the issue with water. And I urge you to get in touch with those that run the admins for openness, Dick Watkins and Tanya. They have done great research on it, and it is cause for concern. I would like to thank the board for terminating this scent air. Speak about cancer-causing things that are unnecessary. This scent air contract, I had spoken of it many times over the past year to please terminate this contract in addition to other fraudulent contracts. In any case, I'm glad that the board seems to be on a new track to move forward, to focus. There are better things we could spend our money on. As far as previous contracts, they've also severed the $30,000 contract that basically put a $3,000 price tag on dogs' heads that also would cover up, just like the scent contract, what the underlying problem is, as well as another $4,200 payment per dog to again cover up what's really going on there. And it's important to get down to what the problems are. That's the only way they're going to get fixed. I have to point out that once more, it all points to gross mismanagement. We wouldn't be having these conversations. Contracts like this would never come to be in front of you. You would have a director that would have solutions. I would like to hear a little bit more, Mr. Ra, about what other things they're looking into, because what they should be looking into are healthy alternatives and cleaning products, instead of using scents to cover up the issues that really need cleaning attention and careful dosing with bleach and products that are healthy for employees to be breathing in. So I hope that's the case and they're not looking to sign another contract because it really is not necessary. I wanted to mention lastly that the other contract that was passed by the board under Santino, which I pleaded and begged and later again, just like with this contract, was proven 100% correct, was a contract to ship and send our dogs that had already suffered and been imprisoned for years on end with a failing system, with people that are not qualified to do their jobs down to Virginia. That was another cover-up. It turned out, and I explained to Supervisor Santino at the time, that the animals were going to be in jeopardy. The state of Virginia closed that facility. It ended up being closed permanently, and our dogs were not only raced back, or some of them, but money was also, in addition, solicited from the public to do this. So I ask that you continue to look at these contracts, terminate what's necessary, and let the ones that have gotten us here expire. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Madden. I do not have any other slips on the administrative calendar, items 7 through 51. Is there anyone else who'd like to be heard on the administrative calendar?
Hello. Good afternoon. Councilwoman Gooseby, on behalf of myself and all the residents of Uniondale, I would like to give you my sincere condolences on your loss. Okay? And Councilwoman Sweeney, I definitely admire your courage and encouragement and your positivity, and I know you will be just fine, and I wish you all the best. Regarding issues on the calendar, my first issue is 25, item 25. Can I need some clarification on this regarding the water issues proposed in East Meadow and Uniondale?
Good afternoon, Supervisor, members of the Town Board. John Reinhardt, Commissioner of the Department of Water. Item 25 is a commitment to matching funds for a grant application that we're making in the New York State Water Improvement Act grant through the Environmental Facilities Corporation. This is part of the Emerging Contaminants Treatment Program. Some new standards that the state is coming up with on water quality, and the state's offered some monies required for the town to commit to their matching funds.
Okay, so my question is, I know the state doesn't give money just because. Is this something that's of concern, or is this something that's you're doing in a proactive manner?
They are currently unregulated contaminants that the state is considering putting regulations on in the near future, and accordingly the New York State put money in their budget this year to assist communities in starting to be proactive in these measures.
Okay, East Meadow and Uniondale, are some of the wells shared? Are the wells shared, or is this why it concerns both East Meadow and Uniondale?
Each district has its own wells that operate independently of each other financially, but all water does go into one combined system. So this is, as far as finances is concerned, an individual grant is applied for both East Meadow and one for Uniondale.
Okay, but at no time are the wells shared. Are you saying that? At no times are the East Meadow and the Uniondale wells shared? I found out quickly in the past that they might be shared at times.
I don't know what you mean by shared. I said all the water goes into one system.
Yeah, I mean, okay. So you just say they are
It's all, yes, it's all commingled, yes.
Right, commingled. All right, thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, the item 31, Nostrand Avenue improvement. Is this related to the proposed development at Holly Patterson right across the street in any way? Item 31.
I think this is just an engineering department repaving or, yeah, no, this is not, I don't think this is related to
This, Commissioner, do you want to come forward? I understand this is repaving, 3 bids were received, the lowest bidder was disqualified, so this is the second lowest bidder, is that correct?
Correct. The lowest bidder was disqualified for a technicality. They bid under one of our fixed bid requirements. They bid under that number. But yeah, this is unrelated to that. This is just one of our road repairs.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Item number 39, authorizing decreasing expenses in sanitation department operating fund and establishing motor vehicle expense account. Would this decrease, would this resolution decrease expense regarding code enforcement, the code enforcement budget? Do you need them? For the town?
Commissioner, you could come forward. I think this just is moving funds within the budget, the sanitation budget, to purchase a vehicle.
In the expense and sanitation department operating fund, I just want to know, would this increase the budget for code enforcement?
And Pritchard, Commissioner of Sanitation. It's a money transfer from a vehicle repair line to a vehicle account in order for us to purchase 2 recycling trucks.
Okay, so it's just, it's basically stays in vehicle repair line, budget line.
It's reducing the vehicle repair line and helping us pay for the capital expense for.
Okay, so it doesn't transcend into any other budget?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. And the last is item 46. I just want to know the details, the clarification regarding unity.
This is just calling for a public hearing, but you can speak to Mr. Reed, he can tell you exactly what properties are affected.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right, may I have a motion on the administrative calendar with the exception of item number 52?
I move the administrative calendar in its entirety except for 43 and 52. Need a second?
Who's second?
Second. Didn't hear.
Madam Clerk?
Councilman Ambrosino? Aye, with the exception of items 49 and 50, on which I recuse myself.
Councilman Blinkman.
Aye.
Councilman Diaz-Fazito.
Aye.
Councilman Dunn.
Aye.
Councilwoman King Sweeney. Aye. Senior Councilwoman Gooseby. Aye. Supervisor Gillen.
Aye. Madam Clerk, if you would please call item number 52.
Do you call it? Item number 52.
Leave of absence from the title Superintendent of Sanitation and appointment of John Conroy as Commissioner for the Department of Sanitation.
Second.
Do we have a motion on this?
Second.
I'm moving item number 52.
Just before we get into it, I just want to clarify, Mr. Rock, this leave of absence is unpaid, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Is there anyone who would like to be heard on this resolution?
Yes. Felix Procacci, 1165 Bond Street, Franklin Square. Can you just explain in more detail what that means and why the leave of absence is being taken? And does it relate to, there's another detail item, I didn't bring it with me, on the electronic version, the details of the calendar. There's a leave of absence, something to do with sanitation. Is this related to that?
Mr. Ron?
By this resolution, John Conroy is being appointed Commissioner of the Department of Sanitation. He currently holds a tested civil service title of Superintendent of Sanitation. He's taking a leave of absence from his Superintendent of Sanitation position to become the Commissioner.
And the guy who, okay, so it's one person involved in this.
Correct.
And what's happening to the existing Commissioner of Sanitation?
John Conroy is the new Commissioner of Department of
What's
Sanitation.
happening to the other one, the existing?
He will no longer be the Commissioner.
Okay, that kind of thing needs to be stated in the resolutions clearly so people can understand what's going on. Instead of like, I know we did this years ago where you eliminated a title, and by eliminating a title you eliminated people. So they never showed up on the resolution, which is kind of deceitful for, especially for a group of people here who claim to be very transparent. But you know, 2 people got laid off under Santino that never made it to a resolution. And that's unfortunate because you could say anything you want to the press and they'll write it. You could tell the press the truth and show documentation and they won't write it unless you hold a position within the town of Hempstead. And that's unfortunate because the public doesn't understand what's going on. So if you're going to get rid of somebody, that is required by resolution that it shows up. And I wish you would in the future do that, because the leave of absences, you have like 6 or 7 leaves of absences also at the end of the calendar, which you don't specify, which I'm going to begin foiling every month now because you refuse to give them to me. And unfortunately, that there is no privacy issue because I'm not asking for their medical records. It's just a person who's taking a leave of absence. You don't have to say why, whether it's medical, whether it's maternity, whether it's this or that, but just so we know where the personnel is, because that's money. And I think that the public deserves to know what's going on with anything that has to do with money. Whether it's an unpaid leave or paid leave of absence, I think that's a minimum information. That's not allowed to ask, and that's not divulging personal information under HIPAA. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to be heard on item number 52?
Meeting Mayor Day, I'm just really confused with regard to this. First question, clearly with the name, is there a relationship to someone who's already on the payroll for the town of Hempstead? Secondly, what is the salary for this position? Thirdly, what, if any, vetting process took place with regard to credentials, background? Lastly, so I can get this all out, lest I forget it. I believe that the candidate who's taking over the position has taken a leave of absence from his previous position. Is he getting a salary or something from the previous position, and who is going to be taking over the position that he's leaving from to take over the position from someone else?
He is not getting a salary for his from the position that he's taking a leave of absence from. And to the best of my knowledge, at this time, the position that he's taking a leave of absence from is not going to be filled.
So that position that he held, with, I gather, some responsibility for him to be chosen for this position, had some level of authority which now is no longer significant to that department. It now can go, so it can now freely go blank.
The new commissioner will be handling both jobs as part of being the commissioner.
So this person will be the commissioner and the superintendent on one day?
That's not what I'm saying. I'm
Okay.
just saying those duties that he had as a superintendent will meld into his duties as commissioner.
So that becomes then a savings in the salary he was getting as superintendent, and then savings over the salary as commissioner?
Yes, as of today, that is true.
So 2 months from now, he's not going to be getting an increase because of his extended duties?
I cannot predict the future.
Okay. Again, what is the new salary?
Mr. Salmon, are you here? Could you speak to some of Ms. Narday's questions? I think she had a question about his salary, how his salary was determined, and if he's related to anybody who works for the town.
The salary is $185, the same as the former commissioner was getting. John Conroy has been an employee in sanitation for 23 years.
What is his current salary?
I believe it's in the 130s. I believe he is part of the Conroy family, Kevin Conroy being our controller.
Okay, my last question had to do with the vetting process. Was there not an assistant to the outgoing commissioner? I mean, if someone's coming from 135K to now a top position at 185K, is there no one, either civil service approved in that level? Was there no consideration for, are there any potential, I mean, again, it goes back to the lack of diversity in the high ends within the township, because were there no females presented? Are there any females that are at that level who could have the potential? Let alone minorities? I mean, again, what are we saying with regard to the lack of diversity and the reflection of just that spirit of inclusion?
If I may say, in the table of organization, the superintendent of sanitation is the highest tested title in that department. In order to have been appointed to that title, John Conroy, over his 23 years, has passed 3 significant senior administrative civil service exams to rise to the position which he enjoyed other people today. There is nobody, in my estimation, in that department more qualified to serve as Commissioner of Sanitation.
Mr. Salmon, to the extent that the unpaid, that the leave of absence is unpaid, as I clarified before, in essence, you've got to net the current salary against the future salary, because we're saving the current salary that will no longer have to be paid for out of town funds.
Right.
It's 140,000 or thereabouts, so it's 185 minus the 140. You're saving 140 because you're not paying 2 people anymore.
That's correct.
So 185 plus the 140 was roughly 325. You're only paying 185, so 325 minus 185, whatever the math is, that's a savings. It's not an additional expense.
Right.
Thank you.
And how long was he in the position of superintendent?
I believe 8 or 9 years.
Okay. So the 9 years that he was in the role as superintendent, so now he's in this position now as the commissioner, and what I'm hearing is that now that superintendent position that someone was in for 9 years, that I'm gathering, since you highly recommend him, and if that's the case, fine, I'm all for people doing the job, but so now that position is now just closed, shut off, or he's going to assume those responsibilities as well, and we're not even considering possibly having a candidate, a diverse candidate who might meet those qualifications, or we're not grooming anyone who might meet those qualifications to be in that position?
I believe there are 2 other superintendents. I think sanitation has 3 altogether. If I'm wrong, I don't know if I'm right. I know there's at least 2. And so the duties will be split between those 2 and the commissioner.
Okay, but you do realize that there is that issue with regard to, if we're talking about the cronyism and patronage and things of that nature, that this kind of continues a pattern that does not bode well for this township and the residents, you know, many of whom are making if they're making 50% of the monies that we're paying for these salaries that folks are getting. Thank you for your respectful of the time. Thank you.
I'd just like to say if at some point in the future the department will have to fill the position of superintendent of sanitation, we'd have to apply to the state for the proper exam, and certainly the exam announcement would be disseminated throughout the community.
Thank you, Mr.
All
Ms. Jacobs.
All the Republican committees will get notified. All the Republican committees will get notified.
Yes, I just have a question. What are the, can you reveal or what are the town's diversity numbers for women and minorities among highly compensated employees? That would be superintendents and commissioners.
Ms. Jacobs, right now we're just talking about the resolution to replace the commissioners.
No, I understand that ties into that, though. That really ties into that, and I would like to know, I understand that he's highly qualified, but my question would lend to what are the town's diversity numbers regarding women and minorities among highly compensated employees?
I'd be happy to look into that for you and follow up. And you will. I don't have those figures.
Okay, but would that be revealed? Can you look into that for me, Supervisor?
Yes, I'd be happy to do that.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else who'd like to be heard on item 52? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Mr. Rowe, we already have a motion.
I apologize. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll, please, on item number 52?
Councilman Ambrosino. Councilman Blakeman. Aye. Councilman Diaz-Bazito.
Aye.
Councilman Dunn.
Aye.
Councilwoman King Sweeney. Aye. Senior Councilwoman Gooseby. Aye. Supervisor Gelli.
I vote no because there's been nothing open and transparent about this process. I did not have any opportunity to evaluate whether or not Commissioner Pritchard was not doing a good job. I will point out that I did not appoint Commissioner Pritchard, and I've had no opportunity to evaluate the new candidate, so I vote no. May I have a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn. Second.
Madam Clerk?
Councilman Ambrosino. Councilman Blakeman. Aye. Councilman Diaz-Bazito. Aye. Councilman Dunn.
Aye.
Councilwoman King Sweeney. Aye. Senior Councilwoman Gooseby. Aye. Supervisor Gelli.
Aye. That concludes the formal portion of our meeting. We will now move into public comment. Stephanie Capuan.
Stephanie Capuano, Wonton. Councilwoman Gooseby, very, very sorry. Sincere sympathy. And Councilwoman Erin, I'm so sorry this happened, that you're going through this, and I've been there several years ago, 40, 50 years ago with my mom, and 10 years ago I had a prophylactic preventative double vasectomy, just to prevent it, even though I didn't have the gene, the BRCA gene, because Dr. Virginia Morris says there are other genes as well. So besides environment, where we have other genes that might be involved, so you did, the right thing, and you are blessed. I'm very blessed with your family. So I'm wishing you well, and to be the great advocate for this. What I want to know is from you. I campaigned for you last year, and I donated a lot of money towards you to help the shelter. So what exactly have you done to hire experienced, qualified personnel? That's all we want. What have you done?
Deputy Commissioner, are you here to talk about who hired people in the shelter? I haven't hired anybody for the shelter. They were all hired by the prior administration or the administration before that.
But we wanted you to be involved now. That's why we campaigned our hearts out for you last year. Because of Diane Madden, I actually campaigned for you, and she was an advocate of yours, and we did love you, and we wanted you to help the shelter. That's why we campaigned for you, and I did donate money towards you, and I would have continued if you could tell me what you have done to hire experienced, not patronage jobs, but experienced people that are qualified. That's what we want. With all the money that's going towards the shelter and the salaries that they're making, we want I'm sick of the pettiness that I hear last week, and the three-ring circus, the pettiness, the camaraderie. I don't care about that. This is serious business. The shelter is serious, and the animals are the brunt of everything here. Shipping the animals out, that's disgraceful. We have people that want to help. What is being done to hire the most qualified, experienced people? Ms. Gillen, please tell us.
So far we haven't hired, I don't think we've hired anyone this year. Commissioner, you can tell me, but what we do is we put these out. Usually we post the openings and we put them out to try to get the most qualified people possible.
You said that you were going to facilitate and bridge the gap here. That in the past, it was all wrong. And you know, I saw that movie on the basis of sex. And it's kind of like the same, going along the same lines. We want to do what is right already. Just like Ruth Ginsburg did. She fought, right? She went before a judge of people, and they agreed that it was time. So that's, we're pleading with you, because we believed in you, that you would do this for us. For the animals, not for us, for the animals. We have a great shelter here, it's huge. There's a lot of wonderful volunteers, and everybody wants to work for the animals, including my advocate, Diane Madden. I don't care what anybody thinks. So could you please?
Thank you for your comments. Melissa Jaffe.
The circus starting. You should call her first.
Councilwoman Bluesby, I'm very sorry for your loss, and Aaron
she should
Sweeney,
call you
I know you have a very speedy recovery.
I should call her.
My name is Melissa Jaffe of Merritt. I am here today to speak on behalf of Christy Fountain. I have written and rewritten this speech more times than I'd like to admit, because I wanted it to be perfect, to exemplify how fantastic I know Christy is. I am at Town of Animal Shelter on average 20 hours a week for the past 2 years. And during that time, I've had the pleasure of getting to know her. She is a leader in every sense of the word. She has patience with the volunteers, staff, and most importantly, the pups. To see a pup when they see Christy from across the shelter is pure joy. They know her, and when she walks over to greet them, you can see in her body language how much they want to please her. If she didn't interact and work with them, you would visibly be able to tell. Dogs know a good person, and we all know that they remember us. Unfortunately, she is constantly being scrutinized by those who don't actually volunteer at the shelter and do not take the time to watch her interact with the dogs. Her resume states, I would like to utilize my skills as well as gain knowledge in the fields of animal behavior, training, and care. Animal behavior and care is an ever-growing field, and continuing education is vital to the progress of humane treatment of the animals. I am dedicated to always evolving my approaches based on the newest humane scientific studies and training on behavior. Where is the harm in that? When you go to a doctor, don't you pick the physician that is most innovative and must continue to learn, or do you pick the one who graduated and never advances their knowledge? In every career, you constantly learn to stay up at the latest and greatest, or you stay stagnant. Just to be crystal clear, Christy never claims to be a behaviorist. We have a 98.8% live release rate, largely because of Christy. Our adoptions have soared because she has helped to get the most difficult dogs adopted or into foster. Just a few examples are Lexi Mama, Heidi, Zola, Peppa Pig, Theodore, Fiona, Banjo, Husky Zeus, Hercules, Drake, and the list goes on and on. Roxy, a dog that was taken by Smithtown Shelter, was returned to us shortly after because their trainer couldn't handle her stranger issues. We have no issues with Roxy because of Christy. Christy has made sure her volunteer walkers are equipped to handle her needs. Sally, another dog that has been questioned, has 3 volunteer walkers and a specific training regimen put into place by Christy. Other dogs have specific training plans also. Do these actually need to be made public knowledge for people to stop making negative comments? She has made fabulous changes at the shelter, the enrichment program, volunteer classes, and the foster day program. We hope you allow Christy to continue working with us. Let's not forget that most of you interviewed her, read her resume, and voted her in. Do you really think you made a mistake? Team Purple does not. We couldn't be happier with your choice. I implore each and every one of you to stop listening to the fake news and believe the volunteers that are actually at the shelter and doing good day in and day out. Let her continue to guide us and teach us to do better. I'm sorry? Thank you.
I'm gonna try to get her to call you.
Marcia Barrios, 9 Forge Lane, Levittown. My condolences to you and Erin King Sweeney. You were very inspirational. I'm definitely scheduling a mammogram as soon as I get home. I could just echo everything that Melissa just told you. Christy is awesome. So, again, I want to talk about something else, so I don't use my time on that. I want to talk about the empty kennels. And I was one of the first volunteers, and I have never, ever seen so many empty kennels. I attribute that to teamwork, the teamwork of the new behavior department with Christy and the volunteers and all the social media we've been spreading around. Hopefully this will continue. I think it will. We always have to worry about new dogs coming in, and they're coming in at a larger rate than going out. But I just hope we can keep that momentum going. And the other thing I want to talk about, because we've been talking about diversity a little bit, is the diversity at the shelter. When I first started, there was one person of color, a kennel worker there. And since then, we have many kennel workers of color. We have people, brown people also, that are working in the adoption department that can speak Spanish, which is awesome because we have so many people that Spanish is their first language. And we have brown people in our behavior team, which is also awesome. So I hope that diversity keeps continuing and maybe these people can move up to a higher level. I hope we get to see that. What else can I say? I'm just very proud to be one of the Purple people.
Thank you, Ms. Barrios. Thank you so much for your commitment to our shelter and to our animals there. Jill Cohen.
Supervisor Gillen, Town Council members. My name is Jill Cohen and I live in Belmore. I am here to talk about Toha's trainer, Christy Fanti, and the volunteer program and how valuable both are to the shelter. Christy's knowledge and expertise have greatly benefited the shelter animals, and she has helped the volunteers learn more about the dog's behavior through hands-on work, one-on-one training, and volunteer classes. I will use my buddy Socrates as an example. Socrates represents many of the dogs we have at the shelter now, many that have gone to rescues, forever homes, thanks to Christy. These dogs are not languishing or rotting in the kennels, as you may see on some social media posts. Socrates has been at the shelter for almost 2 years. He was found as a stray, and the first year of the shelter was very challenging for him. Due to shelter stress, he has developed major behavioral issues. He had no leash manners, he was mouthy, had guarding issues, was very sensitive to touch. Christy helped with deal with these issues by putting him on a structured, focused training program. She taught me the protocol so I could work with Socrates. I have become a skilled handler, and this in turn has helped Socrates get on the right path so that he is now thriving. He actually looks forward to our sessions, which I do 3 to 4 times a week on my days off. He has a routine down pat. He's walking better on the leash. He sits and focuses on me. He's even allowing lots of petting. This would not have been possible without Christy's guidance, and it has helped me set Socrates up for success.
I'm trying to pull some strings.
He's not in the freezer because he's a favorite. He's being worked and improving daily. We have many dogs like Socrates, and they have buddies too that work with them. We have what we like to call the driveway crew. Volunteers work in groups with their buddies, walking, training on the driveway together. This in turn helps socialize the dogs more and sets them up for success. I am so thankful to have Christy's knowledge and help with the animals. I am a nurse for 34 years, and I'm a volunteer at the shelter for 3, where I devote 50 to 60 hours a month. I am a patient advocate as well as an animal advocate. I sponsor and share dogs on social media. A multitude of my buddies have been adopted in forever homes, and I still keep in contact with many of their adopters at their request. I, as my volunteer friends, do this on their own free time. We expect nothing in return, only to set our buddies up for their forever homes. Team Purple, along with Christy, staff, are more than just people working and volunteering together. We are a family that I'm honored to be part of. I strongly encourage you to please renew Christy Fante's contract. The animals and the volunteers need her.
Thank you again. I'd like to thank again all the volunteers who came yesterday to help us out when we were short-staffed on a holiday. It was really great to see you there. Ms. Capuano, you asked what are some of the things that we tried to do. Of course, the animals are my priority. One of the things I really tried to do is build up the morale at the animal shelter. So many of you have been abused and your reputations have been harmed for so long, and I'm happy to defend the good work that you do there, and I'm very grateful for it. Barbara Trebolides, Barbara, if you call out from the audience, you're going to have to leave. You get warned once, but you can save your comment for public comment. If you'd like to speak afterwards, I'd be happy to speak with you afterwards.
You just directed it to her. You said my name, and I didn't say anything about abuse.
Barbara Truvades.
Barbara Trebolides, Merrick Lebo.
Please stop speaking out from the gallery. If you're asked once, you'll be warned, and if you speak out again, you'll be asked to leave.
I've been volunteering at the Town of Hempstead Animal Shelter for nearly 4.5 years. Recently, shelter trainer Christy Fante, staff Jacqueline Panjo, and supervisor Melissa Fogarty commenced a foster field trip pilot project. A small group of experienced volunteers was given the opportunity to take shelter dogs on outings away from the shelter for a couple of hours to give them a break from the stress of the shelter and to bring attention to these dogs to help them get adopted. The following information is based on an article presented by Maddie's Fund, a highly respected animal welfare organization. An ongoing study suggests that foster field trips can help improve welfare in dogs, increase adoption chances, and create other advantages. Significant improvements in behavior were shown. The dogs were rated more highly on happiness, playfulness, relaxation, and confidence, and showed lower fearfulness, anxiety, and insecurity. Foster field trips enabled organizations to learn more about the behavior of the dogs in their care and to market them in new ways. These foster field trips increase the visibility of homeless dogs in the community, which often leads to more adoptions and increased engagement with the organizations that care for them. It is an opportunity to have the dog seen outside the shelter, get to know more about the dog, practice basic commands, and document these outings through photos and video. The primary purpose is to get the dog adopted. Speaking of my own experience, the dog I take on foster field trips most often is Mickey. Mickey is very stressed at the shelter. He licks the walls and is anxious in his kennel, losing weight and tearing up his blankets. On our foster field trips, Mickey is a totally different dog. His tail starts wagging as we approach my car. He jumps right in and settles down. Away from the shelter, Mickey's outgoing, friendly, calm, and well-behaved. We've gone to parks, pet supply stores, and Starbucks drive-thrus. He loves that. And Mickey has been a model citizen. Strangers approach us to strike up conversations, asking about Mickey in the shelter. These field trips have been very beneficial to Mickey in terms of reducing his stress during these outings and increasing his exposure to potential adopters. The foster field trip pilot program has been so successful that it is now being expanded. A meeting is scheduled for next month for active volunteers interested in participating in this program. I want to thank shelter trainer Christy Fante, Jackie Panjo, and Melissa Fogarty for making this program a reality. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Joanne Gordon.
afternoon, and Happy New Year.
Good afternoon.
It's a little hard. Joanne Borden of 763 Gilbert Place, Northwood, New York. And I'm here once again to ask you to include transgender and gender varying people to be added to your non-discrimination clause. I thought it was going to happen very soon, but it didn't. And I would like to, I'd like to ask the question as to whether that has progressed any.
We just passed a sexual harassment new policy, and transgender is specifically included in that legislation.
And you mean the state did that, you said?
We just passed new legislation relating to sexual harassment and anti-discriminatory policies, and transgender is specifically included in that legislation.
Yeah, I think we did, I believe we did it last week.
Okay, I've been watching the internet and your statement for inclusion, but I guess that didn't happen yet. But it was, well, thank you.
I'd be happy to give you a copy of the policy if you can get me
I
one.
have to find another clause to come and holler at you for.
Thank you, Ms. Gordon. Phyllis Federici.
You could go home now.
They don't announce it.
Good afternoon.
I was on the way. I was on the way.
My name is Phyllis Federici. I live in Wantagh. I have been a resident of Gloucester County for 25 years. I am also a volunteer with the town of Hempstead Animal Shelter for the last 2 years. I am not here today I am not here to name call today or to say hurtful things about anyone, and I demand the same respect. I am not political. I don't follow either party, although I have voted for some of you on that board. And you know who else is not political? The animals at the town of Hempstead Animal Shelter. The dogs and cats do not care if you are Democrat or Republican. They just want to be fed, walked, and cared for. I think it would be great if we could all work together, no matter what our political affiliation is, to make the town of Hempstead the best shelter it can be and stop using it as a political pawn. Having said that, I am here today to speak about Christiana Fanti, the trainer at the town of Hempstead Animal Shelter. Anything I am about to say is in my own opinion and from what I have observed firsthand from actually being at the shelter and spending a lot of my time in the trailer where Christiana's work area is. The reason I spend time in the trailer is I work with Christiana on the enrichment program. Last year I hurt my knee and was unable to walk dogs for a while. I heard Christiana was implementing an enrichment program, so I asked if I could be help in any way. She explained what she wanted to do regarding treats, and I knew that was something I wanted to be involved in. I feel I am qualified, and I am proud to speak on the subject of the enrichment program, as I am at the shelter most weeks, 5 days per week, 2 to 3 hours each day. I probably spend a little more than an hour each day giving out treats. I go into each of the 3 kennels, call each dog by their name, get their attention, ask for a sit, give them a treat, talk to them for a minute or so, and say thank you and move on to the next dog. I am now referred to as the treat lady. We give out different treats each day. We try to start the week off with a greenie or a dentist stick to help with the dog's teeth. We give out Whimsies, a treat made of vegetables, which the dogs really love. Some days the treat is a pig ear, which is a very high value treat for the dogs. Another day it will be a milk bone slathered with peanut butter on top. We give out cones filled with kibble and peanut butter and Nyla bones when we have them. All of these items are donated to the enrichment program. We also give out a Frisbee, which is slathered with peanut butter, and we attach it to the kennel door. The kennel door. This is an excellent learning tool. We have learned a lot about some of the animals. For instance, Axel and Retro don't care for this treat. We have tried to give it to them 4 or 5 times. Paisley, Sandy, and Pia are interested, but they do guard. Mickey and Star really enjoy it. It calms them down tremendously.
Thank you. Thank you for your
I'm sorry.
time.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you for your service to our shelter. Valerie Lennox.
Baldwin. Well, he's not here right now, but first of all, I actually wanted to, I'll get back to him later. Number one, I wanted to actually thank the board for not only making a commitment to reach out to Dr. Iovino, but also I'd like to thank the officials who actually took the time to drive down to Jersey to meet with the A-Rod of behaviorist Laura Garber. I understand they were greatly impressed with her, and so who wouldn't be? But you know, look, I want to take away some of the personal jabs that have been, you know, going on here. I want to make something clear. For me, this has never been personal, okay? I don't know these people individually. I'm a businesswoman. I've owned my business for 11 years. Prior to that, I have 11 years in the financial services industry. And the way I would look at this is that if everyone could take a step back and recognize that, number one, the first time I ever heard anything about the animal shelter was because of Laura Illing, who stood in front of the animal shelter and talked about how there was abuse ongoing, not a one-time thing like she tries to say it, ongoing abuse, mismanagement, and patronage jobs. Now, as an animal lover, ask yourself, how would you react to that if someone in a public forum with cameras and reporters there is making these allegations? Wouldn't you also want to stand by her side and get her in office so that she could make all of the promises come true that she campaigned with? Now, getting back to credentials on the resume, and this was actually ascertained by a legal professional, 4 out of 5 certifications that were submitted at the time of Ms. Fonte's resume were actually proven to be false. Now, the town attorney's office already has this information. I'd be happy to show it to you because I want to answer the question that the young lady posed. If I were going to go to a doctor, if I were going to go to a surgeon, I would not go to the surgeon who falsified their credentials. I hope that makes sense. This is not a personal attack. This is 100% professional, and I will show this to anyone who'd like to see it. Last but not least, where'd my notes go? You know, I just want to mention to you, Supervisor Gillen, that you were supposed to be the uniter, the unifier, the person who came in with a bipartisan opportunity. And what I see is that you actually like this division. This contentious relationship is something you're thriving on. But all I want to know is, why are you trying to meet with Diane Madden?
Thank you for your comments. Mike Cassia.
Oceanside. As I started saying before, we know the supervisor is putting a proposal forward to audit and possibly overhaul the building department. We would strongly urge the board to vote yes on this proposal, as an efficiently functioning building department is vital to our community's health. In addition, we would ask the board that they would consider a process to resolve these. These are the 8,600 preliminary damage assessments the town did right after Sandy that have still not been processed. The consequences that some of these people will now receive substantial damage determination letters to their houses, meaning they're required to elevate their homes. This determination has the potential to bankrupt some of these people, as there's no more funding programs in place. and that's caused a ripple effect on the property values in our community. There's already some evidence of this impact. People are shying away from the flood zones because of the uncertainty that the status of these houses have. So what we're asking is a functioning appeals process, as FEMA allows for, could possibly clear a good number of these homes and bring certainty to the market. And in the end, there will still be some homes that are left with this determination on them. At that point, if the town is able to quantify this, it's my understanding that the town could then apply for mitigation funding from FEMA. We believe this can all be done with little or no cost to the town. So this would create a win-win for both the town and its residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Casio. Liz Boylan?
Good afternoon, Supervisor Gillen. Thank you. My name is Liz Boylan. I'm from the Rockville Center. I've been a volunteer with many youth through the years. I've been involved with St. Agnes Cathedral School, Kellenberg, the Rockville Center School District, and even Malloy College. Our youth are our future. I am here today because, as part of my volunteerism, I have seen children flourish. I've seen my own children flourish, and that's a gift. And any parent who needs to make their child a priority to be there for them, make no apologies. There are children who don't have that luxury. I have also been witness to too many wakes. For every child that has died due to substance use, our hearts are buried with them. I am here today to ask, and I need my glasses on, in advance of Governor Cuomo's agenda to make recreational marijuana legal, I respectfully request that the town of Hempstead ban the sale of recreational marijuana within its borders, similar to the ban passed by the town of North Hempstead, and cap the number of medical dispensaries to 2. Secondly, I recommend that the town of Hempstead also adopt zoning restrictions similar to the town of North Hempstead to keep dispensaries as far away as possible from schools, daycare centers, places of worship, and residential areas. And thank you, Supervisor Gillen, because I believe that was one of your major concerns. Science has clearly demonstrated that the chronic use of cannabis and exposure to the high-producing THC compounds has many detrimental health effects. In Colorado, they have not gotten what proponents have promised. There has been a 151% increase of marijuana traffic-related fatalities. The black market has exploded in size. The $2 billion in taxes have been eaten up by an increased need for law enforcement, and youth marijuana is 85% higher than the national average. I gave this letter with more details to the entire board, attached our concerns and opposition. 36 towns in New Jersey are banning it, and I ask that you find ways to enhance the public's health rather than oppose it. Like the tobacco industry, the marijuana industry is pushing addiction on young brains and developing bodies. Legalization is promoted as a fast and new way to make money. The talk of legalizing marijuana raises the risk that someone who cares for your child, a babysitter, a bus driver, daycare worker, may be under the influence. In 2013, a crane operator in Philadelphia killed 6 and injured 13 while demolishing a building. Make no mistake about it, the pot lobby suggests that marijuana comes without harm to others is a fallacy. I have handouts. There is a story here, a life half lived. A boy, athlete, succumbed to marijuana, killed in a car wreck. So please, I ask you, ban the sale of recreational marijuana in the town of Hempstead.
Thank you, Ms. Boylan. I assure you that this is an issue that both myself and the rest of the board are taking very seriously, and we, in fact, are meeting this week to discuss how to address the anticipation legalization of recreational marijuana.
And I have these handouts in addition that would help you with names and contacts.
Thank you. If you'd hand them to Ms. Hanson, we'll take those for you. Thanks.
Thank you for listening.
Ruth Ann McCormick.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Supervisor Gillen, for giving us time to speak.
I am the project coordinator for the Rockville Center Coalition for Youth. We are a drug-free community coalition. We are the only drug-free community coalition in the town of Hempstead. We received our grant in 2015. We are in our 4th year of funding under the Office of National Drug Control Policy, funded directly under the White House. We work tirelessly to prevent youth, substance use, and abuse by prevention and education in our community and in our surrounding communities. I implore you to please opt out of the sale of recreational marijuana in the town of Hempstead. I also recommend that zoning restrictions be put into place to keep dispensaries far away from our schools, our daycare centers, our places of worship, and residential areas. Adolescent kids, age 11 to 19, as well as college-age kids and young adults, have to deal with a lot of social, emotional, and mental stresses, and often they will turn to the use of marijuana to help them with these problems. We have seen firsthand what this does to our community. I have a mom who's a member of our parish, St. Agnes Cathedral, who said to me, speak out about how my son suffered from depression and mental illness and chose to self-medicate with marijuana. He ended up committing suicide in his home. Senator Kaminsky held a roundtable at Malloy College to address driving safety. Even though you will opt out, hopefully, of sale of marijuana in our town, we're still going to have the problem of people driving high. Law enforcement has no recourse to detect this in drivers, so we need funds to help train our law enforcement. Some considerations I asked the senator to take back to Albany with him was to raise the age to 25 for anyone that can legally purchase marijuana. No edibles, including candy, baked goods, and soft drinks containing THC will be sold. Law enforcement needs special equipment and technology to detect drug driving. Mandatory drug testing for employees, especially our school employees, our bus drivers, construction workers, and heavy equipment operators. Tax revenue dollars brought back into our schools for prevention education and more access to treatment for those that are addicted and suffer from the mental illness of drug use. Safeguards put into place protected the public from second and third-hand marijuana smoke. No pot houses allowed in our neighborhoods or growing of cannabis allowed privately. Thank you for your consideration to this topic that we're so passionate about.
Thank you, Mr. Coleman. If you could share a list of some of your recommendations with us.
Everyone has packets.
Oh, it's in there. Okay, thank you. Claudius Aroder.
British soldier and tax collector, international tax collector, and a minister. I believe that.
Sir, could you just speak into the microphone? We have a hard time hearing you. Just speak into the microphone, please.
I believe that God made America, not us. And there are qualities that He has, and He gave to us. And we should never step aside and do whatever we want to do unless we ask Him. When it comes to drugs, it's illegal from since 1923, when President Woodrow Wilson signed the treaty in Versailles in France. And even today, it's permanent. And I'm glad that I heard last week that here in Hempstead, they're doing something about that, but we have to do the same thing all over America. Because I lived in Jamaica for many years, and I know what happened as a soldier, and I know what happened to a lot of people there. And even here, in business, I see what happened to people here with drugs. Not only marijuana, but illegal drugs that America put on. Even the cigarette. it is wrong. What I'm saying, you know, there's an international law, not civil law or the Charter of the United Nations, but the World Court of 52 legal nations. And that's why England is coming out of Europe now, because they want to stand up the principle of the world. But every human in the world have the same right, neither black or white or green, everyone. And in my case, I am a citizen, not of a country, but of the language. And so is the Spanish. I represent some Spanish here because the government here is what do you call it, sheriff, ship sheriff, so this is the law. Your law only for America alone, civil law. And not only that, when that came into being, it was on my birthday, 1776. 11th of June, 1766, my birthday, 11th of June, God established it here, the Constitution. But my Constitution is greater, because I come from heaven, not from earth. And I am here today to change America like John. Many people say a lot of things about John, but thank God I have a jump like this. A Gemini like me too. Because what happened? I believe that every child have a right to the best school, best education, and the best life. And a man and a woman has a duty to be the type of husband and wife according to the international law. So I'm not here about that. I just want to address, you know, what I've done to America that many of you here did never done.
Thank you, sir. I'm sorry, your time is up, but thank you for your comments. If you'd like to follow up, you could speak with Mitch Pitnick on my staff. Mitch, are you here? Right there. You could speak with Mitch Pitnick if you would like to raise some additional concerns.
This is important for everyone here.
But your time is up, sir. You only have 2 minutes. We'd be happy, and you can come to the next board meeting, too.
People talk for, I'm here for the longest one. For 30 minutes, 30 minutes, 30 minutes. I'm not,
No, 30 minutes.
In the school in Roosevelt, I'm the one that what? Run the gang out of Roosevelt.
Thank you, sir.
Not only that.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Not only that, I went to the school, my 5 grandchildren, I sat in the classes.
Thank you.
All of them have a degree today. So what I'm saying now, what we need to do is to help one another instead of killing one another. So may God bless you, sister.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your comments, sir. Mita Meredith? You speak with Mr. Pitnick right there.
Yes, to be Mary. I just wanted to, again, clarify my points earlier with regard to the need for a stronger vetting process within the township as far as the positions that people seem to continue to get based upon connections. That's very disheartening for me. And lastly, just an issue, particularly as it pertains to safety measures, since we're talking about the animals and young people, you know, whatever breath that I have left with my advancing COPD and 9/11 related conditions, I'm going to continue to speak what I feel is truth to power as it pertains to the underrepresented interests of our veterans. We keep hearing about we're the largest township and, you know, we're the largest county, we're America's first suburb, but we lag so far behind in the services and supports for our veterans and their families. And again, that is of great concern, particularly when I have to deal with numbers that pertain to the fact that black women lead in the number of recruits in our military, despite the challenges that they face when they go to serve our country. And then when they return and they do not have the types of resources and services that are so well promoted on those special holidays. And when they start a business, and what most people still don't seem to understand, the ripple effect of the impact of a government shutdown on small emerging or developing businesses who cannot get the resources to start their businesses. We're not only dealing with zombie houses in our communities on Long Island and in the township of Hempstead, but the increased number of closed businesses, and many of them were of interest to people of color who could not get the resources or could not maintain the resources to keep those buildings open. So I'm hoping that if there is no diversity numbers or audit or process in place that a resident asked about earlier, then we find funding to do one. And I'm putting it on the record, on the table, that I do have experience in doing diversity audits. Not that my experience or background or 2 degrees or 20 plus years in community development or anything of that nature has ever been reviewed or considered for a position in the township, but you never know. So I was always taught if you don't know something, you better say something. Lastly, we have a situation, particularly in the first precinct of Nassau County, with the need for crossing guards. So I am putting in again, hoping that we can work with the township to address that issue so that we can put more of our police officers on the street to protect our residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Meriday. Neil Lewis.
Good afternoon, Supervisor and Town Board members. I have 9 copies of my report. My name is Neil Lewis. I'm the Executive Director of the Sustainability Institute at Malloy College. I have a white paper that my colleague and I authored at the end of last year after going through a series of meetings that we call the Long Island Clean Energy Leadership Task Force meetings that I facilitate over at our office at the 110 facility that Malloy College has, where the Sustainability Institute is located at Republic Airport. My goal is to get to every town board with this paper. The paper essentially is recommending that town building codes be amended to require a solar mandate for new building construction. I don't want to make favoritism. No one hit the button. That's okay.
Thank you for your honesty.
I planned everything to try and keep to 3 minutes. And so the premise of our paper is that as a home rule state, New York State does allow towns to adopt what are called stretch codes. So for most things like fire and plumbing, you can't do this. The New York State Buildings Code sets the rules. However, they're highly bureaucratic and I would argue also conflicted and have not done a good job on energy codes. Fortunately, however, their power is not absolute in that area. Towns can take the building code that's in the town code that the state adopts and build upon that or stretch it, as long as you don't go below it. So with the state code serves as a floor. What we've done is recommended exactly this, and the code that's in the town today that requires HERS rating is largely a product of our earlier work going back to 2006 and 2008, where we also put out papers and had meetings to discuss it. So we do consider codes to be one of the areas we've developed some expertise. What we looked at was a series of model codes or potential model codes from other cities. And we looked at the question of reasonableness. Would it be reasonable to say that all new buildings should have some solar on them? We looked at the question of SECRET. The State Environmental Quality Review Act has now new provisions under their regs which says that when you are looking at projects, you should take into account the impact the project will have in terms of climate impact. So that's, if it's going to be using energy, which all buildings are going to use energy, then it's reasonable to ask, can we mitigate that or reduce its impact in terms of the amount of energy it uses, and clearly solar would achieve that mitigation. We could ask, is it reasonable from a financial point of view? Any new building that puts solar on the roof is going to find that that solar will be a revenue generator for them. Our analysis shows that it's approximately 2.5% by our estimate of an increased cost at the time of construction. So we do acknowledge that there would be some need to address that. There is a new mechanism for financing these types of projects that just went into effect in Suffolk County. It's called Commercial PACE. We just held a hearing in Nassau County, and we're hoping that that'll be available very shortly in Nassau also. So after we looked at the reasonableness from a planning point of view and a fiscal point of view, the question then becomes, shouldn't you just encourage it, incentivize? rather than mandate. And we definitely agree with the premise that mandate should not always be the first action. But clearly with building codes, we have requirements for energy efficiency. The question is essentially one of how that code improves over time. And we believe it's time now to say that all new buildings should have solar. Our formula in here is 2 watts per 1 foot of the building footprint. And by that I end on to make the point that we think it would be easily enforced at the town level. So that's my thoughts. And I'm available to follow up with any members of town boards or such that might be interested in meetings or such on this item.
Mr. Lewis, thank you for your presentation. You certainly raise an interesting concept. I'd be happy to discuss it with you, with the members of the board, our legal department, and our building commissioner further. Thank you. Rich Sharon?
Sharon, 167 Jefferson Avenue, Carlisle, New York. Is there a reason why there's no board members here?
I don't know where they all went. I think they may have called a press conference. I'm not sure. That's what I heard. I'm not sure.
Pretty disrespectful to the citizens. But I'm going to say what I want to say anyway. I've read the Woodmere decision on the moratorium. I've read the decision on the Hall Breyer project. I've read the decisions in other matters involving the town of Hempstead. And I have to say, you know, it's embarrassing. It truly is. The fact, I mean, these weren't just losses. These were embarrassing losses. On the Woodmere moratorium project, I mean, the judge basically said, you're issuing moratoriums without any justification whatsoever. You know, therefore, it's unconstitutional. And in the Hall Breyer project, similarly, the court found that you had no basis at all for your the easement, I mean, the condition that you placed on the property. And I'm familiar with the Windows project and the Free Air project losses. And if you take a step back, it seems like this board is taking action in matters, making decisions without any type of legal strategy or doing the necessary preparatory work before they make these decisions. And then when you make these decisions, you're lauding yourself to the residents as if you've done something, and then your core attorneys have to go defend it in court and get slaughtered. It's not, you're not doing a service to the residents in taking this position, these losing positions. You're giving them false hope. You gave me false hope for many years. All the residents of Hall Breyer and now the poor people in Woodmere believe that you're actually going to do something for them, but you know, once again, it's the same path. So my question to you is, what is the process when a decision is being made with respect to a zoning issue or another issue that's significant? Is there not a legal review, and is there not a legal strategy that takes place? How do we end up like this? And I just want to say that when you go to court and you don't have a defensible position over and over again, and court issues decisions like this, you lose credibility. The town of Hempstead is, next time they appear in court, the positions that you take are not going to be deemed credible, and you're going to have a bit larger hurdle to overcome. And you're creating a real problem here. So I would encourage you to create a new process or something that when you make decisions on, particularly on zoning issues, property issues, you know, that you have a legal basis for them, and that they're well reasoned to avoid this kind of problem, because the residents, we're the ones that suffer for it. We're the ones in Hall Breyer that are going to have a huge complex. People in Woodmere are going to have this development done. And, you know, that's all I have to say.
Mr. Sherman, first of all, the Harbor Isle preceded me, so I can't really speak to that. With respect to Woodmere, I think there was a gray area where we did believe that we had a colorable argument. But with respect to
Let me just say something on that. The court noted that the last 3 moratoriums that you issued were without any justification at all. And your attorneys were asked an oral argument, what was the justification for them? And they admitted that they had none. So, I don't know, just saying.
And just to your broader point, Mr. Sherman, I did put forward a resolution that would require our town attorney's office to sign off that any legislation that came before the board was actually legal, and it was voted down by the board.
It really is disconcerting. I mean, Mr. Ra,
I voted in favor of it.
Office, or get outside counsel, or get somebody to give you some sound legal advice on these things before you adopt them, please. Thank you.
Mr. Sherman. Romy Martin.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Massapequa. I am a 5-year veteran at the Town of Hempstead Animal Shelter, and I'm really proud of it. We've come a really long way, and I could speak about so many different things that have gone on from when I was there the first year till now. But one thing I do want to focus on is the foster day trip program, which I've been participating in. The first dog I took out was Cash, a dog spent his whole life outside. And I said to myself, oh, this isn't going to go good. How am I going to get him in the car? How am I going to get him to acclimate? And sure enough, he was perfect. He was such a gentleman. He knew exactly what to do. This is the important information we need from these field trips. And I think it was about 2 field trips, and then all of a sudden a wonderful woman came in, adopted him, and he's living happily ever after. A dog who spent about 5-6 years of his life outside. I mean, it's just amazing. Currently, I'm taking out Lester. He's an adorable 4-year-old, kind of shy, very mild-mannered dog. Had a lot of trouble getting him into the car for the first time. And I said to myself, well, good thing I'm doing this, because if he gets adopted, how are we going to get him in the car? He was really, really scared. So now what we do is we get in the car, we get out of the car, we go to the park, we get out, we get back in. And this is really, really good for Lester. And now when I go down the kennel and he sees me, he's very excited. We go outside, he's looking, where's the car, where's the car? And this is really, really healthy stuff. So I just want to say thank you for having this program. Thank you to Christy, the trainer, who's a big part of it. There's just some really good stuff going on at the shelter. I personally, I don't care what anybody has to say when it comes to negativity, because I'm there. I'm inside. I see it with my own eyes. I don't like to, comment or get involved in any of that, but I have seen a difference in the 5 years. I am very proud to be a volunteer, and I am thankful for the friends and the people that I have met there that give their time, and I walk among giants. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Rachel Martina.
Hello again. Rachel Martino, Kings Park. First off, I would like to say that Romy is doing a wonderful job with Lester, and since Thunder got adopted recently, I sponsored Thunder's page along with Diana Rubin, and now we've taken over, excuse me, for Lester. So now, for free, we are promoting Lester and all the wonderful things he's doing with Romy. So I also wanted to say that my big thing that I'm here today speaking about is when Councilman Diaz-Pazito said at the last meeting that part of the reason he was interested in having Diane Madden with this promotional contract thing, he stated that she was here at every single meeting and she's always speaking. And that punched me in the gut, because I've been saying the same thing for about 2 years. If she's the only voice that's speaking, she's the only voice that's going to be heard. So I really commend my Team Purple that I'm part of for speaking out on our truths and what we see, because like Romy just said, we're there every day. We talk to shelter staff every day. We're reaching out to board members. Unfortunately, they're not here, but that's the whole point to this. We all want to be here. I pray to God that every single meeting you will see at least 2 purple people. It's important that the other side is heard as well. And it's not a perfect place. There are things that need to change, and we've discussed some of this with you guys before. One of the things that I would like to talk about or ask you is when, like, sanitation, right? You have drivers for big equipment. There's certain things that need to be, right? So they have CDL licenses and stuff like that.
Depending on the title, there are certain either civil service requirements or other requirements for the job, yes.
Right. So are there any requirements for new staff at the shelter? Like if people are brought on, like I'm seeing new staff lately, and I'm just curious, is there any, mentoring being done, any protocol with them? Are they familiar with animals?
Deputy Commissioner, are you here?
Good afternoon, Supervisor, Council members. Andrew Mastromarino, Deputy Commissioner of DGS. That would depend on what position would be filled. If it's a kennel cleaner, laborer type, the qualifications wouldn't be as such as would be for behaviorists. So it would be depending on the job, is what I'm getting at.
So as volunteers, how do we know who to go to when there's new staff in and we have like a staff in and out dog? And,
If you have any issue that you wouldn't like to speak with anyone at the shelter with or the director, after the meeting, I can give you my number, you can contact me directly.
yeah, 'cause, I'm just saying that, if you're going to hire people to drive big equipment and they need to be, certified or specialized and trained, then I would like to hope that in the future we could do that for some of the new part-time kennel staff as well. Yeah.
I agree, Ms. Martino. We should make sure that we have qualified people working there.
Because and it doesn't mean that they can't become qualified, I personally had an issue with my buddy dog JJ where at the time he wasn't really qualified and poor JJ did something because the qualification wasn't there and the dog was the one that was punished. So, to keep our dogs safe and the cats too, we really need to make sure that the staff is properly trained, which doesn't mean to say that Christy Fanti, I agree with everything that everybody has said about her. She's been amazing. She has helped several, myself and two other.
Thank you.
With JJ though, so he's now got a future.
Thank you. And you can speak to Mr. Lagaruba over there. He will be helping with the oversee the animal shelter and any other concerns you have.
We all see you. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom Sheridan.
Good afternoon. My
Good
name is
afternoon.
Thomas Sheridan. I actually live in Babylon, and I work in Islip for the Islip Town Shelter. I volunteer there, and the dog I have is from the town of Hempstead Shelter. And a couple of years ago, I met Romy in the park, and we were discussing shelter stuff, and I had only heard stuff from Newsday and everything about Tohas and what a horror show was. And I got to know Romy, I got to know some other volunteers. And about a little over a year ago, I lost both my dogs. And Romy convinced me to adopt Spartacus. Spartacus had been brought into the shelter when he was 6 for idiopathic epilepsy, chronic diarrhea, and just being a tough dog to be around. The volunteers there at the shelter, they formed a whole team around him, all right? And they made sure that he got the medicine he needed and the training he needed. He got adopted. The woman who adopted him ended up having a stroke. The team, Spartacus, went over to her house and took shifts, taking care of the dog, medicating him, feeding him, getting him out. After a few months, it became overwhelming. He was returned to the shelter. He wasn't doing very well. I met Romy again in a fundraiser and drunkenly agreed to take care of Spartacus. Last November, I took him as a foster, and that's when my real experience with the town of Hempstead Shelter started. I can just tell you this, that everything was so positive. The employers, the shelter director, I think his name is Pastor, guys like Mike Whalen who worked there, and volunteers like Romy. I took the dog as a foster because I wasn't really ready for a dog yet, but I knew he had to have a place. After a month, I was hooked. I should have known anyway. They followed up, I mean, baskets of toys. I mean, getting stuff on Facebook from people I never knew before. This is the kind of volunteers you have there. You have like 100 volunteers and like 125 cages. Where I have 15 volunteers and 75 cages. The program, I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that's, obviously hasn't gone well, but as far as the program, what they're doing with the dogs, and the ratio of people and all that, you guys got something good there. And these people, as a volunteer group, I can tell you, being from another place, another planet here, they're really good, and they know their stuff, and I just wanted to come here and just give them a heads up.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Stuart Cole.
Yes, Sue Kroll, Great Neck. My commendations, Mr. Ambrosino, for being here. You must be lonely. You're not? All right, that's fair enough. I've been addressing some comments to people that aren't here. Maybe the building department can help. Bruce Blakely said at the last meeting they were looking into potential availability of sites for Pets for Love. So I'd like to know what the status is. They serve a very important role in the community, so anything we can do to help them would be appreciated.
We did speak about that we are working on trying to help Dave from Pets from Love, aren't we? Hello? Yes? Thank you, yes.
Okay. I'll just say to Councilwoman Gooseby, my sympathies. She's not here, and Erin, I think, was very courageous to come forward, and I'm sure she'll have a positive outcome. Regarding the contract of Christy Fonte, it's expiring shortly. I urge the board to not renew it. As far as I'm concerned, she's totally unqualified. She didn't meet different requirements, and there were some allegations that her resume was not totally correct. So hopefully that'll be taken into account. Let's see. I have to say something about what was said about the last meeting about Diane Madden as well. Some of the allegations were just horrible. I mean, there are allegations that she sold dogs and had them euthanized, and to tell you the truth, they're so patently false and stupid that they really don't even deserve a rebuttal. History teaches us a great deal, not the least of which is that there's great resistance to change. The most disturbing part of the meeting to me was that at least 2 rescue groups got up here and said they would not work with the town shelter if Diane was involved with it. This is not about Diane, it's not about the groups, it's not about the shelter, it's supposed to be about the animals. I mean, I would work with the devil if that's what it took to help the animals, and apparently these people don't feel the same way, which is very important to me. Regarding shelter management, I recently met with 2 of your representatives over at the town shelter to make recommendations, and I said they were very nice and tried to be helpful. One recommendation I made was removing a huge bank of cages they had in one of the cat rooms. I can tell you that dealing with these shelters that I deal with, all about cats, cove rescue, all the cats are free roaming. So I recommended that these bank of cages be removed. It's very hard to adopt animals that way. There are going to be behavioral issues, health issues. Apparently they didn't want to deal with it, and weeks later, the cages are still there. And this is a management issue. They need to find a place to take those banks of cages, from. So, it's a matter of caring enough to do it. The volunteers, I'm sure, do a good job. This is a matter of management. They need to find a place for that. Okay, you've got a building department right outside that room. They can expand it outward. I don't see any reason why that can't be done. The last point I will bring up is, after all this time, this has gone on for longer than I can remember. It'll probably be going on 8 years from now. Our friend Mike Pastoria is still there. Apparently he wanted to be removed, and it was just a matter of finding him another job with comparable union protections. So after all this time, I don't know if it's you, I don't know if it's the board, or some combination thereof, why is he still there? He doesn't want to be there, so why is he there? Do I get an answer?
I raised the issue with the board and got no response.
All I can say is somebody's got to be responsible for it at this point. I mean, the problem is not the volunteers, the problem is management over there. It needs to be changed, and then I'm sure we can have, a terrific shelter. Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Cole. Carl Jacobs.
Pearl Jacobs, President of Homeless Garden Civic Association, Uniondale, speaking on behalf of the Civic Association. Regarding the proposed audit for the Buildings Department, I want to start by saying that there exists a myriad of reasons to audit the building department. My reasons are as follows. Number one, why not transparency? Let's unearth the dysfunctionality and alleged deception that resonates among conversations about the building department. Number two, the lack of building code enforcement in Uniondale has directly contributed to Uniondale's decline in its quality of life. Number three, currently there exists zero accountability, no proactivity, and severe understaffing in the Department of Buildings. One code enforcement officer for Uniondale is inexcusable, especially when the lack of building code enforcement is responsible for sustained quality of life deterioration in Uniondale. Uniondale has hundreds of pending and unresolved code violations. Number five, an audit is urgently needed to improve a broken and mismanaged building department. And finally, I urge the entire board to support the proposed audit of the building department. If this proposal resolution is voted down, it would send a clear and concise message to the town's underserved communities, and that includes Uniondale, that the town just doesn't care and has no desire to invoke positive change. Thank you.
Can I just respond to that?
Yes, you may.
Two things. First, those are your opinions.
Those are my opinions. And those also, sir, those are the opinions of my residents in Uniondale. I have the largest civic association in Uniondale, and these are things that are spoken about. These are the points.
Opinions you're entitled to.
Yes, I am.
The keyword is opinions. And secondly, lifelong Democrat Senior Councilwoman Dorothy Gooseby has been very responsive to the people in her community. So to the extent your opinions reflect negatively on her, I do have to defend Senior Councilwoman Gooseby. I've always found her as a co-worker to be incredibly responsive to complaints in her district. That's my piece.
Okay, and my statement to that is your opinion, and the facts are, if she was so responsive to our issues, why are there hundreds and hundreds of pending, unresolved code violations still pending in Uniondale? And the lack of code enforcement in Uniondale has definitely contributed to the sustained quality of life deterioration in Uniondale, and that is a fact. That's not an opinion. That's a fact.
Both opinions, but thank you for your
That's a fact. And
Ms. Jacobs,
thank you.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
I would just like to say that we look at this audit as a positive thing that could just help our building. It's not to cast blame or dispersions towards anyone. It's just to bring some positive change and find efficiencies and more productivity in our building.
That's why I said at the end that, invoke positive change. This will definitely result in that. We need to do something. We just can't let it continue the way it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Felix?
Felix Bocacci, 1165 Orange Street, Franklin Square. I spoke recently, a couple of meetings ago, about the Franklin Square Bulletin and the possible conflicts of interest between the owner and this, the fact that he works here. Recently, December 27th, there's a picture of Councilman D'Esposito lighting the menorah in Valley Stream in the Franklin Square Bulletin. I'm not sure how that is related to Franklin Square, because I'm sure Valley Stream has its own newspaper. And once again, same criticism of receiver of taxes, Don Clevin. I'm sure I would be, cited if I gave such a inaccurate statement. Again, he mentions the person whose taxes are estimated to go up by a whopping $5,000, but fails to mention that his house was only assessed for $189,000 and is now being assessed over $500,000. And where can you ever get a house in Western Nassau for $189,000? The land, my land, is assessed well over $200,000, just the land without a house. So, it's fake news, and it's very biased news. And there is clauses in the ethics law that says that employees who do business with the town, and I think I sent this to you, and it's desperately needed that, because I can see this board's going to do nothing, that residents, I asked you a year ago, almost to today, that you give residents the option of asking for advisory opinions, because I don't believe this board's ever going to do it. And that would be the cleanest way, to resolve a lot of these issues, and then I would make the results public. On this board chose not to respect the opinion of the court regarding the free air legislation. It was only an injunction, a preliminary injunction, blah, blah, blah. Now we have a summary judgment by the judge saying that you failed to give any facts to argue in a court of law, and summary judgment means he didn't even feel that your case was qualified to go to court, and now we're going to be wasting a lot of money on an appeal. And I have one question regarding that, is I saw you on the news saying that the Army Corps of Engineers is going to be evaluating the property. Why didn't Cameron Engineering do that when we spent $114,000?
I believe the Army Corps project is an independent project, but I can confirm that for you. It's not a project that we're sponsoring.
Okay, but once again, if there was any issues with soil samples, compression, the inability to build houses, we spent $114,000 on Cameron Engineering, and if they would have came back and said that ground couldn't hold houses, It's just we're wasting a lot of money on a issue that has been dismissed by the courts, and I think we should respect the court's decision.
Thank you, Mr. Pakachi. Melissa Jaffe, I think she already spoke. Melissa Jaffe? Okay. Okay, that concludes the board meeting.
I put my slip in.
I don't have a slip in.
On the heels of what you just said, Councilman D'Esposito was at a disadvantage because words were distorted that he said at a prior meeting. There have been many staff, many good volunteers who have come here and shared with the board their concerns about being discriminated against, about being targeted, about animal suffering. So I'm the most threatening, obviously, because they know that I know what's going on inside that animal shelter, and that's their greatest fear. And the biggest division is standards, expectations and standards in quality of care of animals. They managed to make it about themselves. This is not about volunteers. I was the one that got the program implemented, and I have to tell you from 3 different officials, I've kind of been hinted in my ear that the town may do away with the program. I'll be the last to fight that issue. This program needs to be completely revamped. It needs to be Every volunteer needs to be held to a code of conduct. They shouldn't be doing union employees' work. And that is something that I fully supported with the union when I was settling my lawsuit.
There is no plan to get rid of our volunteers.
Okay, right. Well, you can't, you sit there like a victim, like you're so helpless, and yet you're going to turn around and act like you're protecting everybody. We voted you in to protect the animals. As far as my comments for today, you talk about people that have been victimized and targeted and tormented and thrown out of the shelter. Speak to Dolores Stormer, who just won her arbitration. Maybe you should read that, Laura. Maybe you should take a look at the federal lawsuits, and you'll get to the bottom line and underlying issues that are going on in that animal shelter. And they have nothing to do with volunteers, other than some of them that have been favored and given privileges. Because there are many volunteers that are not here today, there's many staff members that are not here today that know what's going on. Absolutely there are good things going on, but they know what the problem is. The problem is management. And for you to sit there and act so helpless that you sent one email to the board and you're done is wrong. And it's against everything you stood for during your campaign. As far as your executive staff reaching out to me, stop. I'm not going to name him, but stop. You can't even run a cohesive board. How am I going to come in and work with your executive staff to try to fix this when you can't even work with a board? As far as hiring, it's your responsibility, not the board's. It's your responsibility.
4 votes, 4 votes.
But it's your responsibility and influence over who is chosen for some very important positions that are coming up at that animal shelter. That's under you. You can't sit here your whole term and blame everybody else and victimize yourself.
4 votes.
I think you should find Mr. Michael Alaco, who did an investigation on the animal shelter and seems to have disappeared. But all of these people that are not in the opinion of the people that come here and defend what's going on there.
Thank you for your comments. Everybody have a nice day.